archive memory. If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Tales from the Archives, the final part of the Thrawn Trilogy, part 2 of The Last Command. You know the drill. I am Grayson of Mortis FM, maybe actually Mortis FM, up to your interpretation. Next to me is...
Hey, I am Grayson from Mortis FM.
Okay. I'll see you later.
Wow. You guys were cloned? I didn't know you guys had a RT cloning cylinder.
I am Grayson from Mortis FM. Grayson.
There's like a weird inside joke where some of my friends, they call me Grayson of Spartex, which is like a Marvel reference for Jason of Spartex. Anyway, below Will is also a really awesome guy with a really awesome beard.
Oh, is that me? Oh, okay.
Yeah. None of us
hey,
have
y'all.
beards.
What's going on? Connor, Beyond the Dune Sea. It's good to be here. What's this guy doing?
Oh, it's Seth from Beyond the Dune Sea.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
What do we read, guys? I heard we read a book.
Well, I already said it, but that's okay. We read The Last Command.
That's right. You did. I'm just being a jabroni. There we go.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yeah, you are.
It's the book.
Yes, The Last Command. I figured I actually would pull it out because I read on my Kindle most of the time, easier to transport. But yes, chapters 15 through 29 of The Last Command by the man himself, Timothy Zahn. Before we get into our thoughts, Connor, I know since you are kind of operating the whole stream, anything in the chat that we want to bring up?
So once again, ladies and gents, our homies over there out beyond in Will's arena and in Grayson's arena, I apologize. Since we're kind of hosting, there's no way for me to pull up your guys' chats, but by all means, Grayson and Will, you read them anyhow, even though I can't pull them up physically. But I see some guys in our chat. We've got Owen, we got the Band Geek, Luke, about to go hard, right? Mega Derps, MC, Zeus, Johnny G. Great stuff. Reddit, so we don't have to. Noise. Hey,
read it.
You read it too. Johnny,
read it so you don't have to. Yeah.
So I am super loud. Okay, thank you for
Mark Thompson
for the call out. But
I like that expression.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and as always, guys in the chat, since we're always experimenting with new, the latest and greatest in streaming technology that we stole from the Emperor's storehouse at the bottom of Mount Tantus, let us know if you can hear everybody. Okay, and if anybody needs adjusted, and we will by all means follow accordingly.
Am I too loud?
Are you too loud? You're whisper. I can barely hear you.
You can barely hear me? I'm just trying to be
Seth
proper.
Definitely do ASMR.
Yeah, he's gonna. There you go. Do a little bit of this. A little bit of reading ASMR.
From our last stream, Flint and Steel.
Stop it.
All right.
Oh, it's just me. Okay.
Oh, it's just you. Look at you in those levels.
I'll dial them back.
Just dial it back a little bit.
Say, I don't know, Mega Derps. Alan says that we all sound great. I'm going to trust him. But anyway.
Yeah.
Grayson, you want to lead us in?
So I mean, the overall thoughts on the back half of the book itself, what are people's thoughts? Because I have some, but I'm going to wait.
I have a thought or two. You want me to start?
I got some thoughts too.
Since I'm the loud one, I'll start.
Sure.
Seth,
sure.
How about we start with you?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Last time you said that the first half of this book you like, which is like the first time in Tales from the Archives history that Seth has liked a book. So does the back half hold up for you, or was it?
So the whole thing is, I'm now convinced that when people say, "Oh, I love the Thrawn trilogy," I think they're just talking about the back half of this book, really. And on top of that, I feel like Mara Jade had a lot to do at the end of this book, and all of his other OCs didn't have that much to do. My other random thought that I had with the back half of this book is it frustrates me a little bit that he doesn't like Dark Empire that much, because I'm like, bro, you go kind of full Dark Empire at the end of this book.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, pot kettle, just saying, just a little bit, but yeah, it's good. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connor, any expanse on those thoughts?
So if you recall from the last one, I was like, man, this first half ain't hitting. Boy, it does be hitting in the second half, though. Like the back half of this is pretty good. I have a couple like narrative gripes that I'll get into, but really it's just me with my pinky up, like, but this is how I would do it. But who am I, to say? But I did really love the back half of this. I thought there was a particular moment that I was like, oh, okay. And like, I love it when that happens, when I'm watching something, when I'm reading something, when there's that like moment of realization, like, oh, this is where the author is leading me. Gotcha. That's cool.
I think I know the exact moment you're talking about. And if it's true, like I was like, yes.
Yeah, well, I'll be curious. We'll have to talk about that. So I really liked it. Like I said, I have a very minor sort of narrative gripe, but it's kind of toward the end of the book. Other than that, I thought as a whole, as this whole trilogy, since it's one story, I think it's not really fair to just criticize Last Command or Heir to the Empire or Dark Force. I think Zahn does an amazing job of setting up character beats and moments, and this is really a character-driven story more than anything. And the follow-throughs on a lot of the setups, I think, are incredible. Like really, really well done. Like Seth said, not everybody gets a lot to do, but to be fair, they don't really have a lot to do the whole story, I don't think. So like any setup with a character got paid off. And yeah, unfortunately, our boy Han, he's just kind of hanging out, and that's cool. But I appreciate that there wasn't something set up and then there was no payoff. I'd rather there to be at least the consistency. So anyway, long-winded way to say.
Yeah. Will, you are, in my heart, the resident fan of specifically the back half of this book. So upon reread, what stood out to you of the great highs and lows of The Last Command?
My favorite moments in Star Wars, a lot of them happen at the end of Return of the Jedi. That's the best of the original trilogy. It's in that last movie. It's the same thing with these books. Mm-hmm. It's like you got two force using lightsaber swinging Jedi on the bottom of a staircase with a big evil guy who shoots lightning at the top of the staircase. Mm-hmm. Is it Return of the Jedi or is it the end of The Last Command? It's awesome either way. The book picks up a lot at the end, I think. Much of to my own chagrin with the first two books, maybe not so much Heir, but a lot of Dark Force Rising is just pacing. And even the beginning of this book, pacing wise, it's a little slow. Like there's a lot of great stuff at the beginning of this book, but there's still some stuff in the middle. But admittedly, the Leia stuff, as much as it is fun, like the slicing and the coding and all that stuff, sometimes it just gets a little draggy when it comes to the entire narrative of the book, especially when you know where all the other characters are. You're like, go back to the other stuff.
Yeah.
But in its entirety, and we'll talk about it later on when the scenes actually pop up, but the end of this book is a fantastic way to wrap up the entirety of the trilogy. And looking at the book separately, this is my favorite of the three, and it's no question why. It's because it is the most like Return of the Jedi. But looking at the entirety of the trilogy like one big story from top to bottom, it's so sound and it's so weirdly strange but still charming, and it's still got all the weird characters and everything that a normal Star Wars story should have, with the mysticism and also space battles. I mean, you get everything that you want from a Star Wars story in these three books in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I echo a lot of y'all's thoughts. I honestly do think, though, based on the way people are speaking, I don't know if it was because I kind of had to cram like the last 10 chapters like within the past 48 hours. the back half of the back half is the best part of this book. The basically, if you were to divide this into quarters, the second and third quarter for me were brutal to get through.
That's fair.
Really? Okay.
I'm like, anytime it would get to, again, like what you said, Will, when knowing that like Luke and Han and Mara and all of them are like on Wayland, and they're like, just like every like piece with like Luke and Mara is just gold. Like it's just 10 out of 10 for me. And I'm like, when I like get to like, so like we left off with chapter 15 and I was like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like we got Carr doing his thing. My biggest critique with this book specifically, the back half of this book, is like Thrawn feels barely there.
Yeah.
And for this being the granted, this is more of a fan dubbed title, so I'm not going to hold it against it. But like, considering this is the Thrawn trilogy, I was definitely expecting a lot more when it came to the presence of Thrawn. And what I will say is how he is ultimately defeated is cool, but it's, in my opinion, extremely rushed.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's it then. Okay. And truly, here's what I will say, and we'll get to it a little more in the nitty gritty. Like, I think that these last, like the last 4 chapters, just page turners, loving it, like just eating it up. Honestly, I think they could have trimmed down the Card and the Leia stuff and expanded that to be way more, especially the final battle at the Bilbringi shipyard, where I was like, oh, like you're like barely even there, you know? And to be honest, like I'm glad that for pacing reasons and like my own personal attention, I like that we are focused more on what's happening on Wayland. Like that is just way more interesting to me. At the same time, I'm like, oh man, it kind of didn't feel like that side of the story got as much love in this chapter of the story. And there's just several plot threads that are definitely left open-ended, like in the sense, like when you think about Return of the Jedi, like truly, I don't know if it's my own personal bias, Will, I'm not sure or how y'all feel, but like I feel like everything is just wrapped up in this beautiful bow in Return of the Jedi, you know? And not that this book is claiming to be Return of the Jedi or like the ultimate finale of the saga. Like they had the full intention to create more books and more stories, but there's like when it got to the very end, I was like, oh, well, like that didn't really get followed up with, and there's more to this. And I was like, okay, it just kind of ended very quickly. I have a hard time choosing which one of the 3 is my favorite. I think maybe as we talk about it more, I'll decide. But that is also my very long-winded
Grayson, that was, since you already brought it up, that's my gripe too, is the way Thrawn, his finality. I like the narrative implication of Rook as a Nogri being the one to deliver the final blow. It's like Thrawn's hubris. And that was one thing I've always known about these books. And I was so excited as we were starting to see like Lady Vader, the Malari Oosh, and all this stuff with the Nogri. Oh, that makes so much sense. We're setting this up. And then it just kind of happens. And I was like, oh, there's not, okay. And I think the reason, since we keep bringing up ROTJ, if Zahn was going to go with this heavy, like rhyming with the finale here, where they're in the throne room and everything, why not have Thrawn overhead? And he's that final piece. Because on Endor, you have the ground assault, you have the fight on like up in the sky, you have the throne room fight, but it's all centralized. It's all to one goal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to track everybody. Whereas when I got to the end of this, I was like, okay, I'm loving everything on Wayland. We have everything going on here and with Card and Leia and like all these moving pieces, but then Thrawn's just over here.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
and that battle kind of doesn't even really matter in the grand scheme of things.
No, it doesn't. It makes no difference. And there's even a joke, which I know we're really jumping ahead here, but like there's not a joke, but Card even makes a comment about how his whole like mission in this book was pointless. He's like, well, man, that's a bummer. Everything I tried to do like didn't pan out.
Yeah, I highlighted that, and I kind of laughed to myself when that happened. I was like, dang, man, that's kind of rough.
It just, it's one of those things. Grayson, I know you might take umbrage with this, but the way that this feels like, it feels like the finale of Rebels to me. Because I like on paper a lot of the individual things that Rebels does, Like when I go watch clips on YouTube, I'm like, this is rad. I love that. Right. This is cool. I like the stuff with Ezra meeting Palpatine, and I love the stuff with the World Between Worlds. But as a package, I feel like it doesn't flow into itself very well, at least in my opinion. Sure. And that's the way that this finale felt, is like, if I just pulled out a few pages toward the end and just like, this rocks, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it also doesn't help too that, like in the last chapter, like Luke's like, oh, there's going to be more fighting. There's more people to deal with and stuff like that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I know that he has to probably set up for other properties to do things and stuff like that. But it's like, then why did you kill Thrawn? Like, why didn't you just do another story or have Thrawn live on to do another trilogy or something? It just seems so like Thrawn dying seems so tacked on.
It does. It just feels like,
because like Jaruus really becomes like the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the third, the third act, if you will.
I think the big difference when it comes to like this ending, we're going to keep saying like how much it's like Return of the Jedi. But whoa.
Sorry. This is bothering me. I got to fix my eye lines. You keep going.
Whoa. I didn't know. I was like, I looked down.
See, now when I look over, I'm looking.
I was hoping I would do it without anybody noticing, but I realize now that was foolish. Sorry, Will, continue.
Better than you talking while you're doing it.
I think the big separation is, at least from what I can deduce and what I can guess from Zahn writing the end of this book, like we all said, he knew there was going to be more properties afterwards. It's kind of like if George Lucas wrote Return of the Jedi thinking in 2 years, there's going to be more Star Wars. But that was never the case. And he always knew there was more Star Wars, but it needed time to breathe and then get to where we were in The Phantom Menace. And obviously merchandise and all that stuff, and then it became larger than itself, and it expanded to where we are now in the 90s of like people are clamoring, they're shaking in their boots like, hey, we need more Star Wars. So Zahn comes along and gives us this, but the end of the books doesn't end with the finality of Return of the Jedi where it's like this big happy ending. It's like, oh, okay, we get the same wrap up, but then it's like everybody's still accessible enough to continue their own stories in other books outside of the two main people. And honestly, I've been waiting for this book to say this, and we can talk about it later on the end, but it's funny to me that this is called the Thrawn trilogy, considering that if you were to compare like percentages of like the big bad, Thrawn is kind of just a guy in these books, and like he's great, and he's an awesome character, but come the end where that's it. There's argument for this to be called the Sabaoth trilogy.
Yeah, I think Thrawn really
or Mara Jade trilogy.
He's the means to an end.
Trilogy.
It's why
Thrawn is the vehicle to get
trilogy.
Sabaoth.
Yeah, no, it's why I call it the heir trilogy, because it's that debate of who is the heir to the Empire.
Yeah,
is it Thrawn? Is it Sabaoth? Could it be Mara Jade? She's the.
Is it Leia, the Malari Oosh?
Right, exactly. And so like that's, I feel like Will, when we first started this, like before we even fully went into the trilogy, I just was calling it the Heir trilogy because I'm like, first of all, Heir to the Empire is such a banger name for a title anyway. And so yeah, well, hey, we were talking a lot about it. We might as well get into the chapter summaries. Some of these I don't expect us to be talking very heavily about. So we will pick up with chapter 15. Let me scroll through my handy dandy chapter summary notes. I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to also preface by saying, because I did struggle with like these like 15 to like 23. I really struggled with. There was part of me that I was like, I might just flip out the comic and just finish it this way. I'm not gonna lie, like, and then just finish it later on. But I was like, no,
I got mine ready.
Hey, heck yeah, dude! I showed Will, but I got this big old omnibus right there. You can see it. It's got all of the Thrawn trilogy, all of Dark Empire, and like a bunch of Boba Fett stuff with like Cam Kennedy and everything, and it's pretty sick. Anyway, chapter 15. We resume with Talon Card. They set up a new base in an old fortress, and and the leads for the clone transfers dry up. Gillespie expresses that the smugglers, they got to get paid. They can't be doing this without some money. Card makes a plan involving Gint, who's on Coruscant, to get basically paid in advance while they're actively looking for the clones, they're going to get the information eventually. He sends out an invitation for another meeting within the fortress in 4 days to present this plan to the kind of smuggler coalition, if you will. And they wait. We hop over to Thrawn, who captures the smuggler Mazik. If you remember, Mazik was the one who did that kind of run on that that partially built Star Destroyer over Bilbringi. And Thrawn's like, hey, you're free to go. It's actually not your fault. The Imperials that attacked y'all, it was not by me. They were actually paid off. Not really sure who. Wink, wink. It might be Talon Card, but it's not. But I want you to think that. Thrawn, right after, speaks to Niles Ferrier, and pretty sharply is like, listen, don't muck this up. You're going to use your Wraith to sneak in this data, like that we had this agreement, into his office. Mazik's already going to be curious. He's going to try to hopefully find it, and it'll put Card under the boot, and it'll all blow over. It'll be good. That's chapter 15.
Neat.
Yeah, it's fine. Yes,
Yeah, it's fine.
Did you guys see that new Star Wars game today?
Mhm.
That got announced?
I have.
That main character looks an awful lot like a young Talon Card, don't you think?
He does, or Kyle Katarn.
Yeah. Just throwing that out there.
Did you see that one of the Jedi is a Two Tubes?
I
It
did.
did. Maybe Two Tubes is hiding something.
Not gonna lie, I'm more excited about the clone. That's just so fun to me. Like a clone as part of like a little renegade squad.
What if it's a guy who's dressed like a clone?
Cool either way.
Okay.
I just like it.
I was about to say it's like
What about the Umbaran?
One when like
Did you see that?
they're not blue, by the way. They're not blue.
No, they're not. They are very pale. I didn't know that Sly Moore is an Umbaran. Do you guys know that?
Mm-hmm. I did.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not a fake fan.
Fun little fact for you.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on this. It's
Chapter 16. Keep going, dude. Let's just get to the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we really want to talk about.
bro.
Yeah.
Chapter 16. The Falcon arrives at Wayland. They kind of set pretty far away because they don't want to rile up any suspicion. Han and Mara are suspicious that they're being tracked. They are about 2 weeks walk away from the mountain. They're ambushed by these creatures called Garals, or something like that are triggered by the whine of machinery, specifically repulsor lifts. And they used to be kind of tentatively used as the Empire as like watchdogs, natural watchdogs per se. Han and Luke deliberate sending a message to the New Republic. They're like, hey, we found it. We need backup. But they're worried that an Imperial patrol might be ready to intercept it. So they forget the idea and prep to make the journey to Tantus. After some kilometers traveled, they stop along their path on a dry creek bed. That's kind of what they're going for. Mara and Luke talk, and Mara kind of finally asks the question, like, how did the Emperor die? Because she keeps seeing this vision of the way it happens, of Vader and Luke clashing, turning away, and killing the Emperor. And Luke tells what really happened, that he was about to be killed, and that Vader was the one who threw Palpatine down the shaft. Mara, she kind of lashes out very briefly, but then very quickly subsides on the idea. Great chapter. Loved this chapter. This was the stuff that I'm invested in.
Yeah. I mean, Mara and Luke, heat.
Yeah, just truly like there's a book called Timothy Zahn that it's the very final book in the what they call the New Republic era, because after that it's like the Legacy of the Force era. It's called Survivor's Quest, and it's just a Luke and Mara book, and I'm like, I want to read that because that sounds fun. That I just want them together. But
What were you gonna say, Seth?
yeah,
I mean, this is really like where I think the book kind of shifts to that Mara's the main character. Like it's where it's starting to really shift. We've said it before. This is like her journey or whatever, and that's kind of like been this whole story. And I really think that this is kind of like where she's taken the Luke seat, if you will, because everything kind of hinges on her, basically.
Mhm.
You know, the Emperor's last command.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
That was so cool, by the way.
Oh,
Later.
give me a break.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to the later chapter.
I kind of loved that. Yeah. Will, thoughts on this chapter? I'm sure you probably liked the stuff with Mara and Luke, like when they're talking about what happened. Did I?
Yeah, I think knowing that or having the perspective that Mara Jade is the focus of specifically, like way more the focus in this book. This is probably the only time where I can give any semblance to understanding when people think that the best way to have made Luke Skywalker was for The Last Jedi, and this is what I mean by this. Luke in this book is
So good.
but he's kind of like Palpatine, where Palpatine is just the ultimate evil, and you know that he's always going to do the bad thing. In these books, I didn't do it.
So I think you guys are good now.
Fellas.
Yeah, I think we're good. Right?
Will is in the top. Okay. Yes, we're back.
We good?
I think so. Yeah, just
Do
had a
we need
little
to put up
blip there.
The hang in there, baby. Chat.
Don't worry, baby. Hold together.
Yeah, there we go. My bad. Okay, you guys should be good now. Will, continue. Or start over, maybe.
Okay.
I heard Luke
Okay.
is the ultimate good. That's
Luke
where
is
we're at.
Luke is the ultimate good.
Yeah. So basically, the whole thing that I was saying, the Emperor is always the ultimate evil, and you already know that he's going to do the bad thing no matter what. There's not a lot of character growth for the Emperor for the entirety of the saga, even, and every time he comes up, there's no growth. He's always the bad guy. Here, I think in these books, I don't want to say that Luke Skywalker doesn't have a lot of growth, but he's the backboard for Mara to be the opposite of the Emperor, where you know he's always going to do the good thing. And I think that's his role in these books for Mara, is she's lived under the shadow of the Emperor for the longest time. Regardless of that, now she's going to live in the shadow of Luke and his goodness rather than the evil. So that flip is there, and Luke is more, as much as he is great, he's more of a device in these books, and it's Mara who has the change rather than Luke.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a great point, because I don't think he has a crazy amount of growth. I do think he has some very good, like, quarrels that he deals with, if that makes sense. Where, like, I love the much like I'm a big Superman fan, and I really enjoy with Superman when they put him in, like, kind of testy situations where it's like, it's him having to it's not him beating up a giant monster. It's him having to rationalize with a moral conundrum.
Yep.
And we'll get to it a little bit later, but I will say, I think honestly, when you say that, like, he's, at least in this book specifically, he's like kind of the Ben Kenobi for Mara. Like, he's the supporting backbone of, like, hey, I'm gonna help her get through this sort of thing, which in and of itself, like, I think is cool character growth for him, because it's one of his big dilemmas is, like, how am I going to teach somebody? And, like, Mara's the living example of, like, not in the way he expected, because he was worried about having to teach Leia and therefore her children, and through the challenges actually has to kind of teach Mara. Yes, Seth?
Well, I mean, Luke was taught not to be, like, you know, a warrior. I mean, I think it's very fitting, like, his choices in this book, and even with, to name the movie that shall not be named, even in Last Jedi, like the way he chooses to fight in that movie, I think it's all very kind of Luke Skywalker. And I feel like the ending of this book and going, like, the back half of this book does feel very Luke Skywalker-y with how he's portrayed.
Yeah. I would personally... Oh, go ahead, Grayson. Sorry.
No, I'm going to actually save my thought until we get to the moment.
Okay. So I would personally disagree just a little bit with all this, because saying that Luke... I think Luke, while he is the ultimate good here, the way I see his arc in all this whole trilogy is that he's really learning, like, okay, in the original trilogy, he's becoming the Jedi, farm boy to Jedi. All right, that's his path. Here it's, what does that mean now? Like, that's what he has to figure out. Like, what does now, now I'm a Jedi, I'm the last of the Jedi. What does that mean? And so you have two really awesome foils that he has to go against. And maybe pop culture has done a disservice to this trilogy by calling it the Thrawn trilogy all of these years, because really it's Sabayoth and Mara who are his two mirrors, right? It's like, and so he has to learn to, from Sabayoth, is this what I need? Do I need to be like this in order to be a Jedi? And then he is able to really go through that arc by the second book, propping him up then to help guide Mara through her final part of the journey. And I really, really like that. And there are moments, I think, in the conclusion where I was really questioning, because I didn't know how it was going to end, how Luke was going to respond to some of like what Sabayoth was doing, and what specifically when he was swearing his fealty to him. Right. Like, I will do what you need. Or is he actually going to kill Sabayoth? So there were moments where I was still wondering where Luke was going to go. And I think the final beat of his character arc is definitely on the last page, which we'll get to it. So, I really love that Luke got something to do this whole trilogy. I think that's really cool. Sure.
It's honestly kind of like a relay race, because I think he gets the most growth, like, from like Air and then into Dark Force Rising, and then it's kind of like the passing of the torch of like, now I'm going to help Mara do this.
Well, he had to. What I think is cool is he had to go through that in order to be there for Mara now. Like, that's, if you don't have Air and Dark Force Rising, you don't get, he doesn't have the necessary skill set, I think, to be what he needs to be in Last Command for Mara Jade specifically. Will.
I know I said it last time, but I cannot not think of Luke this entire book. What I am thinking of is Luke in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
The entirety of the book. It's as like much as he has the inner turmoil of like, can I be a teacher just like Book of Boba Fett? He's also continuing to do it the only way he knows how, and that's the way he was taught by Yoda and Ben. And for him to start this entire trilogy with Ben leaving, it is very cool that he had to literally step into that role because Ben is gone. Because if Ben was still around, he'd be able to convene with Ben and say, and have Ben, or even, oh, Mara, you can stick around because I know how to convene with somebody who is my teacher, and you can learn from him, and I can be the conduit between there. But now he's just got to do it all himself. So as much as I don't necessarily like canonically like 100% agree with the whole Ben Kenobi of just like, no, I'm tired, I gotta get out of here. Like, as much as I really don't agree with that, and I think that there's always ability to like come back once you are one with the Force, depending on what the Force wants to do in that moment. For him to be completely removed for the entirety of this is very cool. I am also extremely happy that Sabayoth was not Ben Kenobi for the clone of Ben Kenobi for the entirety of this. It is so much better that he is not. If he was, I think it would have made a weird problem for Luke, because he's now constantly looking at Ben Kenobi. And I know it's a clone, but it's like that Force, the Star Killer thing of like, even though you're not him, you can still live his legacy. If you're a complete copy of him, you can live his legacy. When in Force Unleashed 2, when he doesn't want to join the rebellion, he's just like, nah, I just gotta help out and look for my lady. But for Luke to not have Ben Kenobi there, and for him to not be constantly looking at Ben Kenobi, but for him to just be looking at this older Jedi who ends up, rather than being a Ben Kenobi, and him giving him the benefit of the doubt of like, down to the last minute, he's like, hey, I can help you. He's like, I know you have a sickness that I can help, down to the last minute. And it's not even him who really finishes the job. So all the way down to the end where he's trying to do the best for himself. I'm very happy that it's not Ben or a clone of Ben, that it's a completely different character.
Obi-2.
Obi-2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they would have done if they actually did make it an Obi-Wan clone, they would have called him Obi-2? Do you think they would have done that? I hope not.
And then the next one is 031 Kenobi.
03 more Kenobi.
Yeah.
Obi two tubes.
Well, I mean, we're already like talking a lot about it. We're gonna go ahead and push forward.
By the way, real quick, hi Phidias, Matthew, Quinlan, Steven. I see all y'all.
You need to
Hello, chat.
Just saying hi. Just saying hi to the homies.
Yes. Hello there.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate you all.
Chapter 17. Back over to Leia and the gang. Her, Winter, Gint, and Garmel Obelisk set up a hidden room to work on finding Delta Source using an algorithm and Winter's enhanced memory to narrow down who is listening to what at what location. Leia goes down to the war room as the New Republic uses this kind of like ionic dust to help track the path of the asteroids. And they take one out, but they miss another one that hits one of the remote controlled ships. And so it's kind of working, but kind of not. They really need this one piece of technology that would really help them out. But unfortunately, it's in Imperial airspace. Back in the makeshift office, they rule out that it actually can't be anybody based on what's happening, but it could be a droid. So they analyze the Grand Corridor. They kind of do a sweep as one of the assemblages things happens. And it's not even a droid, but Leia starts thinking about the vibrations, and it's the Chala trees using their vibrational pressures deep in the roots to actually transmit the information. Guys, what are our thoughts on the trees?
It's awesome. I'll say it. It's awesome.
Someone messaged me from the last video and was that it took Elder Being not to say a joke about if only there wasn't a plant in the capital or something of that nature, just some sort of like plant joke that because they think it's a traitor, or they think it's a spy or a mole. It's just planted in the building.
So I'm the only one who thinks this is cool.
I think it's fine.
No, I love it.
Okay.
I think it's
Grayson
fine.
hates it then. I get you.
Doesn't bug me.
This book specifically does a lot of like person just sitting there and being like, but wait. And then it's like, that's it. The way they went about it, if they're just sitting there, and then like I don't remember specifically what Leia says, but she's just like, it's kind of like these trees. Trees, you say? Delta Source, bam, bam, bam. And it's like, I think the concept is cool. The revelation, once again, kind of lame. That's just my thought.
Oh man, I disagree. I had so much fun with that because like I've worked on speakers and built systems like that before, and like the way that Zahn describes it, I'm like, oh shoot, he's describing a piezo. That's crazy. No. And then that's what it was.
That stuff is cool. I just the way like it just was so. It was like, guys, we really got to figure out about Delta Source. God, I don't think we can do it. Oh, it's the trees. Okay, like, and I think the science of it is cool.
That's not how the way I saw it was. I loved the cascade of information where they're like, okay, it can't be a person. Okay, it must be a droid. Let's get it set up here. And then so it sets her up perfectly to have the revelation, because then she goes and sits down. She's watching for the droids. And it's like, oh, shoot, well, there's nothing. And so she's eliminated droids. They've eliminated this. But they know it's in that room. Plus she has her Jedi sense. And so I think it makes total sense that finally she has the revelation like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, look at that. That makes total sense right there.
I agree. I think it should have. I actually think this is one of the plot points that should have been drawn out a little bit longer.
I know. I agree about that. I'm just talking about the actual revelation. That's all.
Okay. Yes, Will.
I love the trees. I think they're fantastic. I think that is the perfect example of when Star Wars just gets out there weird. I was listening to an interview with Sam Witwer, like I do every day, 24 hours a day. But I was listening to an interview with Sam Witwer yesterday, and he's talking about why George Lucas was so great at what he did and why people love the Clone Wars as much as they did. And it was Sam talking to George Lucas's son, Jet Lucas, I believe, right?
Jet. Yep.
Yeah.
Dexter Jetster is named after him, if you didn't know that.
Don't forget about Zet Jukasa, the greatest Jedi of all time, guys.
That's true. Him as well.
Jukasa knew.
What?
He's talking to Jet Lucas about why people loved the Clone Wars, and Jet said that it was because Clone Wars was made by a man who was fed up with Star Wars, meaning that he did not want to redo what he did with the original trilogy, and he was always going to do the weird third thing that everybody in the room thought of oh wait, this didn't work, oh wait, the other thing didn't work, what if we try this? That's why Clone Wars is cool. I think that this tree thing is the perfect example of like weird Star Wars mumbo jumbo of like, it's a tree, like that it would make people of like, all right, it's a tree that like sends out vibrations and also has all the coding and everything. That's weird enough that I think it fits the mysticism and like the charm of weird Star Wars, which is why I love it.
And to add on to that, I think that it's something that almost makes sense, like in real life too.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of that thing in Skeleton Crew when they make when Wim drops makes the cast of metal to like fix a KB. That could work 100%.
Yep.
You know, and like this makes just enough sense that it could work, and I love that. Like that's so cool. Like before they even said like this tree is a microphone, I was like, oh my gosh, they just described a microphone. That's so cool. Like an organic microphone. That's what a fun idea. I'm 100% with you.
You brought up Skeleton Crew because the one thing that I thought of the entirety of Skeleton Crew was this tree of like that droid at the end who's in charge of everything. It's like, you know, it's very similar. And obviously for Skeleton Crew thematically, it had to be the droid because Jod hated droids and he had to go up against this thing. And the whole time that he was going for this treasure, it was the droid who was in charge. He hates droids. It makes sense why it was a droid, but it would have just been a little bit cool. If there was like, he opened up a door and he's like, what? And I almost thought for a little bit they were going to do it because of how At-Atten had so much foliage the entire time. And I know it was like a little bit like a neighborhood, but when they were going down the streets and they were like when you go outside of like a nice mall and they have like an it's almost like an arboretum where they have all these trees and it's nicely irrigated and everything. I was like, they might do it. It might be a little bit close. And it wasn't, but that's fine. I love trees. And I hope they at some point have it in this. I think if they did it for a movie, people would flip, but it's still very cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think the practicality, like I didn't have a problem with it of like a plot of like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, I did think it was going to be a person. I just kind of like, it was just like they were going through all of this stuff. And then it just was like within like 3 pages at the end of a chapter. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. Well, like I would have liked for it to be a moment where Leia comes back and she's like really trying to rack her brain, you know, and she like maybe reaches out with she's like looking at the trees and she's like, wait a minute. And then she's like reaching out with the Force to like, that I think that would have been really cool. And then it breaks down. I would have been like, oh man, that's so sick. It gives a little bit more also of like Leia's training. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not like, oh, this is stupid. I just was like, okay. I'm like, well, that wraps that up, I guess. So
yeah. No, I think when it popped up in the other chapters, when Leia was starting to find out about when what's his name did the slicing and he like got the information, he's like, yeah, I was gonna give it to blah blah blah, but I figured he was too busy. And Leia's like, does anybody else still have this? The thing that I thought of, the way she said it in my head, was when Dumbledore gets mad at Harry for putting his like that's like pushing him up against the wall of like, does anybody else have to? That was immediately what I thought of, and I wish Leia had some cooler stuff to do, like maybe get trained a little bit more in the arts of being a Jedi, but it's fine. I'm happy that she was as prominent as she was. The stuff where I think Leia's now knowing the entirety of the book, or now that we've talked about the entirety of the book, I think Leia's best moments are when the Citadel is getting ambushed. That's the entirety of this trilogy, is when Leia's at her best.
There's one moment, one Oh wait, which citadel's being ambushed? The Imperial Palace or Mount Tantus?
When Mara's like, Leia, you need to retreat. Yeah, that's, I think, is the coolest. Like Leia just being so force sensitive and being a general, and it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I agree.
To follow one last thing here before we move on, to follow up on what you're saying, Grayson, about how like the revelation about Delta Force happens and then kind of stops. That would have been another way to, I think, tie everything in because you had a lot of these great threads. You had Delta Force, what's going on with Thrawn and this, I forget what the planet's called, but he's like, no, they're going to go here, not here. And Peleon's like, I think you're wrong. They're going to go here. It would have been great if Delta Force being just found out, and uprooted, pun intended. If that would have then tied into Thrawn's plan, and maybe he's like, shoot, okay, maybe now we need to go back to Wayland and regroup or something, and then he's there for the final assault. Because you're right, it kind of just ends, and Thrawn has like a throwaway line in the next scene with him, where he's like, oh yeah, Delta Force isn't a thing anymore. Moving on. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's it. There's no. They don't get a win from that, there's no moment where because they destroyed Delta Force, now the rebels get the upper hand or anything. Thrawn's just like, pshaw, move on.
I mean, he does lose.
He does.
Is that what is that kind of his thing though?
It's more
sorry, Delta Force. I was calling it Delta Force, wasn't I?
He kind of loses. We'll get to it, but he kind of loses just like Deus Ex Machina. Like it's not like of any like.
Because of the smugglers too, right? Like because of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I feel like we're jumping the gun, but like my biggest problem is I'm like, okay, how did Rook find out about all of this? Like he just like he's like the Nogri stuff is awesome. I was like, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, he knows. Like I don't know. Because that was some of my favorite stuff in the previous book, and I think they're really great in this book too. Like the Nogri being like this prominent backup force, and then it's like I'm like, who? And you get, I think, one line, like one of the Nogri's like, oh yeah, like some of the commandos and stuff out there know now. They're knows. Like they're ready to strike. But I was like,
yeah, I would have loved to see.
I would have liked a scene with Rook,
I would have loved something where Rook does something and Thrawn disrespects him to his face. Mm-hmm. Just showing his own hubris, because the idea is so great that everything that's going on with the Nogri, but then I don't know, it just doesn't execute very well in my opinion. Like if you handed me if I read the first two books and then you handed me a piece of paper that said Rook's going to kill Thrawn because he disrespected his people, I'd be like, yo, that's a great ending for him. Mm-hmm. But then, okay, it's just happens. Like that's it. That line on the paper is it, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it in a little bit because I know we got another like 10 chapters to go of Card doing card tricks. I'm sorry. Chapter 18. Card is about to have his meeting with the smugglers when he's warned of a possible intruder near his ship. Whoever could it be? His crew is unable to find them, so the meeting proceeds. But Mazik is like, hey man, I brought some of my guys. I want to have this in the ship. I don't trust you. Card and the other smuggler leaders are brought on, and they find the data card. But Card is kind of able to talk his way to the situation, and then Niles Ferrier, being the bozo that he is, completely gives it away by saying the colonel's name or whoever it was that he was never spoken aloud. So everyone's like, oh, okay, it was you. And so he forces Card to fly the ship, the wild card out of the little like whatever, and tries to get away in his own ship, but he fails. And the smuggler's faith in Card is bolstered once again, knowing that he did not set them up. It was Thrawn being sneaky. I actually did like this chapter. I will say, like with the card stuff in the back half, this is kind of where it peaks for me.
Yeah. I was like, if this was an animated show like Clone Wars and this episode popped up, I'd be like, that was cool. But then when I would get to it doesn't really make a ton of difference in the overall story. I don't think, because by the time we get to the smugglers at the end, they have their faith shaken in Card once more. It would have been great if this moment was then brought back up at the end, where they're like, maybe one guy is like, man, maybe Card's abandoned us. And they're like, no, he wouldn't do that, because we know his character, and a callback to the scene, but there's none of that. Everybody's like, yeah, we're gonna have a talk with your boss.
Yeah.
And it's like, then what was the point of this scene?
Yep.
That's my thought on it.
This really, I mean, the Card stuff, again, like this chapter itself was more enjoyable, and I kept being like, listen, this is gonna pay off. This is gonna pay off. All of this stuff, it's gonna be crucial to what's happening in the final couple chapters, and it just did. Like the way it ends in Dark Force Rising with like the Katana fleet and everything, I think was like a perfect culmination of all of the characters. Like, do they all happen to show up maybe a little too coincidentally? Maybe, but like it at least felt paid off of like, oh, this is why this person is here, and oh, they showed up because Han called them, and oh, a Card's coming to give backup. Like, and so I was waiting for that to kind of happen again, and maybe like but split into two fronts, and it just doesn't really. But go ahead, Will.
Now that we are at the finale of this trilogy, I apologize for anybody in the chat who very much likes this character. Talon Card is extremely boring to me. I just like, he's fine. Like, if it could have just been Han doing all that stuff, and it's not.
But that's the thing. He had to make a new character that actually does some stuff while Han doesn't do anything.
And like,
man, that's a good point
for the new Emperor, who's like also kind of the new Ben, and the new Luke Skywalker, who's badass Emperor's hand. Like, I'm a sucker for all the new, and I'm a sucker for Thrawn, the one guy who like doesn't have an equal throughout the entire saga. Love it. And then you get Talon Card, and I'm like, all right. Where it's just like anytime he's on screen, I'm like, I want to just like, if it was a video, I would just like double tap the 15-second. Like, I don't need to hear what you're saying, dude. He's fine. He's fine. But in the entirety of the book, I would rather Han have a third of his lines and just be a little bit more interesting than Talon Card having to say them with his skunk ass hair. I
remember when I first started Air, and I was speaking to Connor individually, and I was like, man, Talon Card is really cool. This is it just started Heir to the Empire. I think in Heir to the Empire is where he has the most, as the kids would say, aura, because he's like, oh, he's kind of this like kingpin, but he's not like Jabba the Hutt, where he's just like a crime lord. He's just,
but then it just goes downhill where I'm
I'm like, because once he leaves Merkur, I was like, oh, I'm excited to see. And I do like him in Dark Force Rising, and like, Luke and Mara going to get him, but like it's not as good as like the threat that he poses. Like when they capture Luke and Heir to the Empire, I was like, man, I'm really digging this. It's really cool. And in this, I'm just kind of like, oh, you're kind of there, Talon Card.
You know what? Maybe he should have died at the end of Dark Force Rising.
Would have loved it.
He could have been the Phil Coulson moment for the Rebels, Just a thought.
Also would have been way cooler for Mara to now have the next person who is kind of in charge of her, like the Emperor, to also die. And if it had something to do weirdly with Luke being around, and she thinks that like he's the reason why it blew up, and it just doubles down on Luke Skywalker being the villain. Yeah,
like he's sacrificed maybe on aboard one of the when he's fighting the clones, and Mara's not there to witness it. Yeah.
Yep. Would have been real cool.
That's neat.
And then Han would have had a little bit more to say in the entirety of Last Command. But he's not the worst, and I understand Zahn, like Zahn portraying him in card games is honestly the most cool part about Talon Card to me. That's it.
He's a character with a lot of potential, but I do agree with you, Will. That is probably the biggest indictment against him, is that I'm fine with all these other characters being mirrors to their OT counterparts, but because Han doesn't have anything to do, it does make Card seem a little strange. And it's the archetype is stretched thin when he could have just been Han.
Card is what you remembered about Han in the original trilogy. And like where Mara is what you remember about Luke in the original trilogy, Luke is what you remember about Ben and Yoda, and also you get to see Luke as Luke with that progression. Han is just
Never tell me the odds, kid.
Yeah, like just mumbling and he, even when he like in the comics, I think the best screenshot of Han, like to just show off the entirety of how he is in the original trilogy. Leia gets up because she senses the attack and the ambush. So she gets up and she's already got her blaster and she's already got everything figured out. And Han's like, there's somebody in there, and it's already been figured out. And he's like half putting on his shirt. And he's got a blaster and his eyes are closed. Like that's the entirety of. He's like Han is like lagging in terms of a feed for the entirety of this book. Or for the entirety of this trilogy, and yeah, but we keep beating that into the ground. It's just
honestly,
boring.
like I'm thinking about it, and like we talked about it in the last stream, that like I do think this really could have been like a duology, and I honestly can think about certain plot lines like being like axed to get a little bit better. Like I think with Air, like the whole like mole miner thing. You could have just like cut that out and just go straight to the Dark Force. That's the main driving force. And then, oh, bam, at the end of Heir to the Empire, he gets the Dark Force. But now it's like, but we don't know about the clone stuff yet. The middle book, it's them, maybe trying to get some of these ships back, but then we're figuring out the clone stuff. And we've obviously got with Luke and Jor-Us, everything. Or sorry, that's like the kind of front half of the second book. And then, of course, all of that's culminating in like one big battle with the dreadnoughts on Coruscant, and then the other stuff happening on Wayland. Bam. Like, I feel like you could cut out so much fat. I don't know. I'm not a writer, but that's just what I think. Yes, Seth?
You in the red.
Am I stupid? What happens to the Dark Force? I don't remember. Like, he's got it. And then what?
Well, they're just using it in this book.
Exactly. But like, isn't it still out there?
What do you mean? He's using it.
He's using it. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't get destroyed, does it? All of his dreadnoughts?
No.
Exactly.
We don't really see like the
they aren't actually doing anything because like he shuts down Coruscant with the invisible asteroids, and then like you get all the stuff on Wayland, and then he
that's a good point. There's not really much follow up here.
There's nothing. I was just thinking about that with what he just said, where it's like you got a whole book that sets this up, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's got this thing, and he never even uses the thing.
He does, but it's all off screen. They're like, oh, the Empire is like taking over all of these systems. You just you only see it in little vignettes.
The opening of the book where he teleports into the barrier or whatever makes the planet surrender and stuff.
Yeah.
But still,
and they're like, and then you'll get like little updates of like Mon Mothma and them being like, oh, they've got another system. Man, they're really doing us in. And it was just more of a vessel to be like, the New Republic is not doing very well, but like, I mean, by the end of this book, other than at Bill Bringey, like the Empire is still like, they don't have Thrawn's leadership anymore, which is a huge blow, but like they still exist. Like that is very like they're not like going anywhere.
Gonna need Heir to the Empire too. Had to see how who took their spot. It's gonna be Hux. He's gonna be jumping in there.
I do know that Pelion has a much bigger like role in future books, like even down to like the role he plays in the Empire, but not like a T. But yeah, cool stuff with Card. Moving
next
on.
chapter.
Chapter 19. The group on Wayland treks on and deals with a bunch of flora, fauna, vines, little creatures, all that stuff. They find an empty clawbird nest where Chewie's able to find nearby a dead bird, but was killed in the air by like a stab wound. So it was not killed by a predator. Han speculates the natives of Wayland are stalking them and watching them. They continue to push forward, stopping for the night, where Mara and Luke, they sense the natives nearby. We get this little lesson with Luke kind of helping reach out to sense other lives. And he's like, hey, we should, before we go hit up Wayland, or hit up Mount Tantus, we should train a little bit more. And she's like, okay. We hop over to Wedge and some of the various wing commanders. They meet up with Medine and Akbar. They're trying to make a plan to get one of those crystal grav field traps so they can help deal with the asteroids. They are like, hey, they're kind of want us to go to, it's Tangreen. That's like the least defended one. That's what but it's probably going to be a trap. So we're actually going to go to Bilbringi and because it's going to be more heavily fortified, but they're not going to be expecting it. Leia at the very end kind of has some vision regarding Mara and Luke, hoping to make sense of it. I'm trying to remember what this comes up later on, but anyway, we'll get to it later. Wayland stuff, again, very cool, like the little training stuff. Yeah, I don't have much to say about everything else.
I loved the vibes on Wayland. That was pretty fun. Like when they find that bird and they're like, oh man, it died while it was in flight. That's crazy.
It reminds me of Endor, but dare I say better, because like they're getting to do more of the narrative rather than just like they're riding on the Ewoks' tails.
Take this section on Tantus as they're going up to Tantus.
Yeah.
Cut out the Ewok stuff. Take that, put it in there. ROTJ, perfect movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just like the eerie vibes. Like it really feels like it's crescendoing, you know?
Oh yeah.
So they're like, what's going on here? What
I really like them cutting the bushes down and stuff like that to try to like be covering their paths and stuff like that.
Really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say something controversial though.
Uh-oh.
I'm just not that into Wedge. I'll be honest. Like every time it cuts to him, I'm like, can we move on? Like, what is he doing? Like, he's just not. He's not contributing to the story. I don't think.
Hey, we got him, Rogue Squadron. Oh, let's go help. Hey,
exactly. It's every time. And I'm like, the stuff with the gravity trap. It ultimately doesn't mean anything. They don't even get it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so every time, like even in the last book, I felt the exact same way. Like I was getting to the end of the book, Dark Force Rising, and then one of the last chapters is like Wedge Antilles sits in his cockpit. I'm like, come on, we're in the finale. I mean, he's cool. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like,
the disrespect.
It's just Wedge, man. Can we get back to the other stuff?
The disrespect.
I'm sorry. I know. I know it's gonna be. I said it's a hot take, but I'm just
the best Wedge content I have consumed was probably there's a chapter in The Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view that I really enjoyed. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, I actually kind of like what, but I like in these books, I'm like, bro, I've got Mara Jade, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and the entire rest of like the original trilogy gang. I'm like, I'm sorry, Wedge Antilles. I don't care. It's fine. Yeah, can y'all keep it in the mental note, because I don't think I put this in the notes later on, but at the very end of this chapter, Leia has like this vision thing in the night of like, or not like a, oh, sorry, that's something else. Later on, I actually got ahead of myself, but like
a vision.
Leia
of
is
Mara
like,
killing Luke.
No, it's not. Yeah, so there's that, but no, there's another thing where she's like, oh, there was something that Mara said and Luke did, and it ends up like tying into Card, and I'm completely forgetting like what it has to do with the overall. It was like it was like a little stinger thing, but we'll get to it later. If I can't find it, I'll just look up later. It's not really that important. Any other thoughts? Chapter 20, we good? Cool.
Chapter 21.
No, we're on chapter 20. Thrawn, and did you say 21 or 20?
Oh, did I skip 20? Sorry, 20. Chapter 20.
Thrawn and Pelion, they take this one system called the Zufel system, getting word that there's going to be some forces reaching Tangrene, and Thrawn's like, I'm going to think on that. We go over to Card. He presents the info of the Tangrene attack from like the rebels to Mazik and Gillespie. They're like, oh, okay, the rebels are going to attack, or the New Republic's going to attack there. So, hey, we can make some extra cash by we can go to Bilbringi and we can get the crystallograph field trap. And, you know, while that attack is happening, and then it can help them out and we make some money from it. But Card's like, I'm going to go hop over to Coruscant real quick. I got to get Mara Jade. I got to get Ghent. We got to do that. There's some stuff going on there. New Republic analyzes some macro binocular footage from Card on Yukio. It's not really clear how they get this footage. Regardless, revealing what actually happened with the cloak ships. Okay, gotcha. There's one underneath the shield. Winter is given data on Wayland's location from someone unknown at this time. They all deliberate if they should send forces to Wayland, but they're like, nah, we should focus on the Bilbringi stuff. We're already kind of all in on this. Thrawn reveals the Pelion. He's like, they are not attacking Tangerine. It seems obvious, but trust me, bro, they're not. They're going to attack Dobringi. And Pelion's like, I do not believe you, but okay. They just have to make sure that the rebels believe that the Imperials don't know. Plot threads for things that don't matter. So,
Last cool Thrawn moment.
Yeah, which one?
I mean, just him belittling Pelion again. It's like, oh, please, Captain. Do you really think that they're going to go there? Trust me. That
yeah.
Yeah.
It literally is like, trust me, bro. Trust me.
And that's basically it.
Thrawn source, trust me, bro.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
Josh
just a lot of
Manhattan.
plot threads for, again, things that don't matter, but that's okay. Chapter 21. Oh, go ahead, Seth. That's right.
Have we gotten to the part with the the smuggler group and then the whole they take out the wraith and everything?
Yeah, that was a couple chapters ago.
I didn't hear anything about that. I just think the wraith's stupid. I've just decided that.
Okay.
I think it's really dumb. Anyway, and I don't think it belongs in Star Wars. Moving shadow, cool. Don't like it. Keep going. Let's go. I've made my decision with this book that I was just like, that's stupid, and I just not into it. I'll take a tree that's a microphone, but I won't take a living shadow. That's stupid.
That's where Seth draws the line.
Yep.
That and owls.
Yep.
It's going to be
Cat owls specifically.
Scooby-Doo Cyber Chase, guys, with big old fangs. Chapter 21. Mara and Luke, they train a bit before R2 detects some kind of systematically cut vines, confirming they're being followed. In the evening, they investigate and find some of the pursuers. Surprise, they're actually some Nogri that were sent by Leia because they were like, Han's not going to want them, but now they have some backup. And the Nogri have actually made contact with the two populations of natives, that being the Mini-Irsh. I don't know how the lovely Mark Thompson pronounces it, so feel free to correct me. And the Poseidons. The Poseidons are like rock people, and the Mini-Irsh are like four-armed people. So forearms and diamond head.
No way! I thought the same thing from Ben 10. Yeah,
bro. I guess it would be like blue forearms, but anyway.
That's so funny.
Yeah. After some chats, Chewbacca kills an attacking predator using his bowcaster, and they're like, "Wait, what?
Yeah,
your Wookiee has a blaster? That's crazy. Okay, you guys aren't bad people. All right, we'll let you. We'll vibe. We'll let you go through. Cool." There's this whole really well written chapter, although it was very unclear to me what was happening at the time, where or part of this chapter where General Covell is like, he is tripping out with Sabayoth is really getting in his head. But they pull up to Wayland. Mara, she stays awake through the night, speaking to one of the Nogri. And one of these Nogri reveals, Luke is Vader's son, and she's like, "What? I did not know this." And it really throws her for a loop. And then Sabayoth reaches into her mind because she's awake and Luke is not. But he kind of feels it, and he's like, "Hey, listen, why don't you get some rest? I'll stay up for a little bit." I for some reason fully thought it's like weird. I guess Luke doesn't go around advertising it, but like I was pretty sure
he kind of does in this book.
Say what?
He does kind of advertise it in this book. He has several lines where he's like, "It is I, Luke Skywalker, son of the Lord Darth Vader."
Well, that's still like the Nogri.
I know, but it's like, come on, like she didn't catch one of those. Is she not around for any of that?
Well, she was in a ship.
I just thought she knew.
Yeah, I thought she knew as well.
I mean, who would have told her? Vader died. Palpatine's not going to tell her.
Yeah.
I guess it's not like a
young rebel that destroyed the Death Star.
This was a heater of a chapter, by the way.
Yeah, really good. This stuff was awesome. I wasn't like, I kind of was like, whatever about the native stuff, but it was cool to be like, all right, here you go. Sets up a little bit of them helping kind of off screen later on. And I do like the Nogri showing up, but yeah, once again, the Mara Luke stuff is.
What was the term they call Han now?
Yeah, Han
Clan
Solo. That was sick.
Yeah.
He's like, please don't call me the consort of or consort Organa or whatever.
Will I am.
Yeah. Well,
So that would also mean that Mara had no idea that Vader was Anakin Skywalker. Like she would have never known, like the Emperor would have never explained the Anakin side of things about Vader,
No.
which I guess would make sense because the Emperor wanted Anakin to be dead anyway, and for him to just be Vader. But like, I've been on a Shadows of the Empire kick. I apologize, everybody, but like, Caesar knows Vader is Anakin. Like at one point, he's like, Anakin, that Skywalker, that's the name that Vader used to use. And then they go find Luke, which like, it's weird because now there's the thing of like, nobody was supposed to know, and Vader would kill them if they knew. But I just feel like it's kind of just like, it's a hard thing to keep under wraps. You know what I mean? I don't know. Seth, what's up?
Well, I think it's interesting too that like you got to think about when the book was written, and also like there's no way that because like we knew so little about how that went down. Yeah, at this point that it's like, you know, maybe it wasn't possible really for you to know that like, I mean, we weren't even sure that like Vader could. Yeah, we just didn't know anything about how that situation goes down. Like Vader could just been a dark Jedi or like yeah.
I think it's just because in our current fan ethos, it's been made clear in canon, like after the Return of the Jedi, everyone knows. Not only Luke, but also Leia are the children of Darth Vader. And so you just assume that it's common knowledge, you know, but I guess, back then, like when this kind of era of canon, if you will, probably wasn't as advertised, I would imagine. A small Luke thing that I thought was so rad is when he's training Mara and Mara's done with her lesson. She's being all snarky and just takes his lightsaber and throws it. And he's just like, catches it again. I'm like, man, that's so cool. He's so calm about it. And it's just a great reminder that he's not that guy from the beginning of Empire anymore. He's, you know, struggling to take his lightsaber from the snow. He's just casual, like, oh, you're going to throw my saber. It's, you know, you okay. I'll just take it back. It's fine.
It's
great stuff.
It's sick.
Also, this stuff with Sabayoth and what's the guy's name?
General Covell.
This was such a weird and creepy chapter. Like, oh my gosh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I think this would make an excellent, like, little Star Wars one shot where it's in one location and they just film the whole thing. Oh, what's up?
So we've been talking about the trilogy as, this would have made sense if you can see it as like a Clone Wars arc. And I think when we're all saying Clone Wars, we are all talking about the George Lucas, Dave Filoni, like 3D animated with Anakin and Ahsoka and all that stuff. But with this book specifically, just because of how like weirdly wizard it is, I think, and we all very much are fans of this, Gendy would be like this in the Gendy style, especially the finale of this book with like the big battle. The rigidity of the 2D animation, I just think would be so cool because they weren't, and not in a bad way, but they just weren't under that, like the fluidity of the animation style at that point. And it was also written differently, right? It was written by George and Filoni, and that's a very different point of view than just what George was doing with those writers for Gendy. And it was completely different. But like the rigidity of something like an Anakin versus Asajj in Gendy's
peak,
like that's fantastic. Or even like the entire time, what I was thinking of towards the end of this is Asajj again, but Asajj and Dooku, like with the training, when you will never be a Sith, like that, where he floats down with his cape like shimmering, and he's just all the way like that's so. It's a little bit dorky, but it's a heck of a lot cool. And I think that style of animation and just the way the vibe of that show was, where somebody would say something and there wouldn't be a lot of like sound design behind them, and then like music would pick up. I loved that versus like Clone Wars, where it was like there was constantly a score and there was always something going back in the background with, rather than Anakin just going, I don't know, Master. and then it would freeze frame on his face not moving, and then it would go back to Obi-Wan. Like that, I just think the rigidity of that animation style would kill with this story.
Oh, I agree, especially the final fight. Oh,
yeah,
it'd be so good in that style.
Yeah. Oh, it was so good, bro. Yeah. I mean, hey, we've said it probably 7 times each stream. 2D animation Legends content would be sick.
Let's go.
Would bring a whole new audience to this stuff, man. Chapter 22. We cool with that?
Yep.
Sweet. Pelion and Thrawn, they get a call from Waylon informing that Covell died in his sleep. It's pieced together that Sabaoth took over his mind, but he failed to fully do so, and so it pretty much caused Covell to, like, his brain to just shut down. Facts. Thrawn orders, some troops were ordered under his influence to leave the mountain, unsure why. So he's like, hey, Sabaoth, he's a traitor of the Empire. Make sure he's arrested, and don't let those troopers back in, because they might be the same thing might have happened to them. Thrawn implies that they might actually make a superior clone of him that's, like, properly bred, and that isn't rushed before heading to Vilbringi. By the way, I remember the Leia thing, but we're gonna actually it's just here in just a second. Continuing, back to Wedge and some of his pilots that hang out at a bar.
Yay.
Hoping to indicate further at Tangreen that it's the target, but they run into our boy Aves, one of Card's guys, who wants to know when their attack will start. And Wedge is like, I don't know, 48 hours. I don't know. And they're like, bye. And that's that. Tiny violin for Covell, guys. But yeah, pretty cool. I like Sabaoth, like him, kind of what he's doing. Again, it just feels so disconnected in these, like, with
it feels very
Sabaoth just are like, it's not important anymore, you know?
It's really weird how, like, all of a sudden it's just like he's taking control, like, through other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that makes sense. I guess, like, that's a choice. I guess I would have just done it differently, in the sense that, like, you can see him figuring all this stuff out and how he's going to do it, rather than just like, well, I mean, all those guys left. Well, that probably is a bad omen. That guy died to sleep. Probably also a bad omen.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was also a little unclear to me. So he's, like, brainwashing Covell on the way there, and then they later on establish, like, Luke is like, oh, the reason it got cut off, like, we couldn't hear him anymore, like, when they reached out to Luke and Mara in the middle of the night, was because he hit the proximity of the Issa Lamiri in the mountain. But the colonel, I don't remember his name, who's telling what happened with Covell, is like, oh, like, Sabaoth, like, he was with him the whole time, and he was, like, muttering, like, he was, like, kind of next to him making these, like, little mouth movements. And I was like, but that was while they were in Tantus. And I was like, I thought, like, when they were on Tantus, like basically the entirety of the mountain was, like, not.
Well,
so like,
doesn't Luke see it as a black spot? He can't see anything in the mountain. Mm-hmm. Which,
so it might just be that Sabaoth is just, like, crazy, and he's just, like, kind of talking to himself, which is not out of the ordinary. But the way it would, like, it indicated that, to me at least, he was actively, like, telling Covell what to say, but maybe not. I mean, it's kind of unclear exactly how it all works anyway, so I'm not going to critique it too hard. But yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was about to jump the gun. I'm not going to worry about it.
I was just going to say, this is one thing that's irritated me about Thrawn and this whole trilogy. I don't understand why he doesn't just kill Sabaoth. Like, when he's had multiple opportunities.
He probably needs him.
Well, he says that the only reason he's keeping him is to clone him, but as we know from the end of the book, he could have just killed him, cut off his hand or something, and used that to clone him.
It's true.
Like, I just don't understand why he's shown that he is, insane.
Like,
and Thrawn, it's been like, but hold on.
After the Yukio planetary shield stuff, Sabaoth is never used in Thrawn's plan.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't get why after that moment, Why he doesn't just order his troopers to go in there and kill him. And then you could still have a moment where Sabaoth gains control, and that would be cool. But I just hate how passive Thrawn is with this, where he's like, I
we'll
chill out for a bit.
Way better if instead of like, there's that argument that they have in the first half where Thrawn is like, hey, we're done with you. I'm actually sending you to Wayland as a prisoner. And then something happens on the way to Wayland where Sabaoth is able to like break free, or some pirates attack or something. And then Sabaoth's able to like actually take control of their minds and take control of Wayland. And Thrawn is like, whoa, that is not chill. And then it would have made it not Thrawn. It would have made Thrawn not look as like, hey, why do we still have him around? Because then it would have made sense to like send him there and be like, hey, we need him there. We're going to keep him as a prisoner in the case we ever need him again, or we can clone him without actually straight up killing him. But honestly, like, I think you're right.
Well, what about this then? I mean, I think you just solved a major problem that we've all had here. What if in that beginning with that argument, instead of sending him to Wayland, Thrawn's like, you know what? We're sending you to this Imperial prison that we have, and we'll get you later. And, you know, we're tired of you. Get out of here. And then on the way, Sabaoth, you know, manipulates and gets control. He goes to Wayland. And then at the finale, Pelion gets the thing and there's like, hey, there's people attacking Tantus. But Sabaoth is there and he's in control. And Thrawn's like, excuse me? And then Thrawn then goes to Wayland. And then the whole thing could culminate all together.
And Rook still kills Thrawn.
Yeah, and then you could still have, because the Nogri are on Wayland, you could send one of the Nogri up to be like, hey, yo, Rook, we're not chill with Thrawn anymore. He's like, I got you, homie. And then he goes and kills him.
You could have just got rid of the Graffield trap thing entirely. Like,
yeah. And I just Thrawn being passive with Sabaoth makes no sense to me. So that would have, I think, solved a million problems.
They've fought plenty of times before this. That it's like, well, why would he keep putting up with his bullcrap?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because Thrawn, we know, like, he's different than Vader, where he's not just going to throw a temper tantrum and kill somebody. But, like, when someone is repeatedly causing him issues, or is at the stem root tree, Chala tree, a problem, like, he's gonna take him out. Like, I mean, there was that one chapter in Air where he was like, you messed up, you're dead, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the establishment that Thrawn is not Vader is very clear in the first book, but then it gets overplayed into here where it's like, you killed that one guy for messing up the thing with Luke, you know, in that first book, and that was a great moment. Why are we just allowing Sabaoth to run rampant over here? Yeah. Especially when you have the Ysalamari, like, just get close to him and shoot him. Like, he can't do anything about that.
I don't know. It is strange. It does make Thrawn kind of look like a goober.
Goob.
True.
But that's okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts about Wedge drinking, living it up? You know, I'm just kidding.
It is weird that so many people are like, why is Thrawn so beloved? When, like, but no one ever talks about Jerus.
I think he's because he's different.
Yeah.
Thrawn is as Will was saying earlier, like, Thrawn has no match.
Yeah.
Whereas Sabaoth is just the Emperor 2.0.
Yeah. And but crazy. And but
he's cool. It's just, I think that's why he doesn't live in people's memories.
Gotcha. OB2.
It's really, like, real quick, since we talked about this, let me grab these. Hold up. I think it's so interesting that the fandom has latched onto that, because look at the cover of Air. Like, Thrawn's like a little guy down here. You know, look at Dark Force.
He's on the back, isn't he? Or is he?
Thrawn's a little guy. He's just a little homie right there.
On this one, bro.
He's not even on Last Command.
Is he not on the back?
Nope.
It's a bunch of X-Wings.
Wow.
So it's guys. Like, I almost feel like in a way, maybe it's not fair to judge these books on that, because these books are not advertised as the Thrawn books, you know? We've
romanticized him.
He's almost like Tarkin, right?
Yeah.
I was about to say, I think people really love the idea of Thrawn. As Balin says, I miss the idea of it. You know, it's and honestly, like, again, I don't think there was any reason to kill him off in this book. Like,
I agree.
I think you could have set it up of like, hey, the main threat is done, but Thrawn can come back later on. You know, very much like.
Do you think that was a Lucasfilm publishing decision then at the very end? Like, it was an editor's note to be like, hey, you can't leave him hanging like that. He was too big of a villain.
It has to be, right?
That'd be a
What do y'all
question.
think?
I wonder if there's a way to ask Zahn that without being offensive.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, you raise your hand first.
Okay.
Need a buzzer.
Well, I was just curious because you love the trope of the hero and the villain teaming up. What if during the final fight you get kind of a Shadows of the Empire moment where Thrawn shows up and he obliterates Tantus as all the good guys have to get out of there, and he's the one who like brings down Tantus and helps kill Sabaoth, and then it's like, hey, or helps defeat him, and then like he lives to fight another day, where it's like, I helped you take care of this because it was my problem too. And then,
Yep.
I thought you were going to say Thrawn gets there and it's like Thrawn and Luke side by side.
well, no, not together, but I mean, like kind of like at the end of Shadows of the Empire, Vader shows up and destroys the Skyhook while the rebels are fighting the Skyhook. I apologize. I don't know. Have you read it, Will?
Yep.
Okay, good. I am going. You're like, I'm on a huge Shadows of the Empire kick, and there I am talking about the ending.
I love that book and those comics. And
Yeah, it's fun. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
I honestly,
It's too
Seth,
close.
you did the idea. You said like Thrawn. I'm like, imagine if like Thrawn was like, "Hey, yo, Sabaoth is going crazy over here," and it gets to the point where like, what happens? He like gets in the prison or whatever, and then he's like, Thrawn is smart enough to be like, "I'll back you up in this. We can put aside our differences for now." Maybe that'd be out of character, but that would have been pretty cool to have like.
That would have been
Thrawn and
awesome.
Luke
And that would have
team
been
up
a
to
great
take out
through line to
Sabaoth.
Rook, too.
But yes, that's the whole thing. It kind of connects all the dots. But at the same time, like Thrawn being smart enough to see that it's like, no, this is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That like, being willing to do that seems still in character.
That would have been really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Will, what you got?
Come the end of this book, I think at least to the main characters, and when I say main characters, I mean like obviously Mara and Luke, but like comparing Thrawn's the caution that everybody has for Thrawn when it comes to like the Ahsoka series of like everybody is so terrified that Thrawn is coming back, right? At the end of this book, like, is there any point where Luke or anybody has a thought of like, oh yeah, but what about Thrawn? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Literally at the,
like he dies, and then
They don't even know
like,
it.
Nobody says anything about it. Like,
the very last chapter, they just say, "Oh, and well, Thrawn's dead now."
yeah,
They say that.
it's kind of honestly
they?
not to talk about Shadows of the Empire again, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like when Dash dies in Shadows of the Empire. Sorry, spoilers for a thing that came
Dash
out
dies?
30
I
years
didn't
ago.
know.
No,
I'm
we
30.
don't.
It's as old as
Hey.
me.
It depends on what medium you're following.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's talk about. Well, in one of them, they don't even mention it.
I know.
In the video game, he gets away, and Luke's like, "Man, I really can't believe Dash is gone. Darn
Yep.
it!" And that's the end of it for that cutscene. But
Yep.
in the comic book, they're just like, "Oh, Dash, you're gone," and then that's
Wow.
it. Like it's not even like a mention. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
Isn't it?
And he's
He's
just dead.
dead, right? Isn't the video game show that?
there's an extra cutscene at the end. Where
Well, the cards tell you too that he lives through it as well.
Yeah, he. There's more money to be made otherwhere in the galaxy. What do you think? I'm going to join this rebellion? Yeah, it's.
Okay, yeah. Here's the line. I get. We're jumping all the way to chapter 29, but it says, "What do you need information sources for?" Mara countered. "Thrawn's dead. His cloning center is in shambles, and the Empire's in retreat again. You've won."
I mean, the Nogri probably let him know.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess my point is like in current canon, which is very cool. I think going back and reading like this, there's a lot of people who obviously have not read this, and they're like, "Man, Disney ruined Thrawn."
Dude, right? Yeah.
But he at least from where I'm sitting, he's a lot more menacing when it comes to what we've seen in canon than we have. Well, at least from the Ahsoka series versus what we see here. Like he's great here. He's an awesome character and he's super intellectual, but he's not as like overbearing. Like he's the smartest guy in the room and he's going to make everybody mad. What's up, Seth?
Well, I was going to say too that like I know that he appears in other stories because that book that Grayson was saying that like he's on the cover of that book, the Mara and Luke story.
Survivor's Quest?
He's on the cover.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's also
So-
the Hand of Thrawn duology. Like there's like the legacy.
How is
of
that? How is he in that?
It's probably because it takes place during this story somehow.
No, it's there's these rumors of like Thrawn is actually still alive, and they're like, what? I don't think he's actually alive. But
It's a clone.
If that's it's the whole stinger. Is it?
I don't know. How nuts would that be? It's another guy. Thrawn 2.
Yeah.
Thrawn.
Yeah,
That's basically his real name, Mithra Randu.
Yeah.
I can pull up here. I'll pull up the
Thrawn.
Twerk.
Grayson, throw it back before you sit down.
Yeah. Drop it low.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on the cover.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
What's the back of the book say?
There it is. There it is.
Woo! That's what you pay for,
They
guys.
got any dollar bills?
Yeah.
A dangerous mission to salvage a piece of Jedi past threatens to make Luke and Mara Jade Skywalker history. Yeah.
Neat. Hey, what's the next chapter? We got to get to this heat.
Yeah, we need to get to we're just
We're just jamming.
Yeah,
Just write our own Heir to the Empire.
Being so mean.
Maybe
No, we're not.
Heir to the Empire is the friends we made along the way. Just kidding.
We do it to the movies. We could do it to books.
Chapter 23, Leia searches for info on cloning in the archives, but to no avail. Abruptly, she's contacted by Card, who is in orbit. Gint makes an encrypt code, and they speak, along with Garm Bel Iblis, and they show the footage of the asteroids in orbit. Card shows the footage of the asteroids in orbit of Bilbringen being like, hey, you got them all. There was only 22. It's a wrap. And they're like, really? And so Leia also figures out that the Ysalamiri are all on Wayland. So Luke will be helpless to fight Sabaoth if he's there. I think that was the thing that was the connection that she made, was that like she remembered that like she put something together about like what Mara
It's because
said.
when Card is on, when he recounted his story about being aboard the Chimera, he said that Thrawn was offloading thousands of Ysalamiri, yet Luke could still use the Force, and nobody knew what they were there for.
Yeah, and so the whole speculation is, they're able to do it way faster because there's some like Force connection between the clones, and that suppresses that, so it allows them to like not have any flaws, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you summed that up perfectly. Card, he a little bit later, he lands on Coruscant. They open up a part of the shield, the planetary shield, with Leia pleading for him to take her to Wayland and warn them. Card is like, I don't know, I got to get that crystal grav field trap thing, and which I'm still really not sure why he wants it anyway. I guess to get the money, but regardless. But then good old Thalia, he's just kind of hanging around, listening in. He's like, hey, Card, you should do this, because if it's not, it's going to be really bad, not just for Bothans, but for the entire galaxy. And Card's like, I'll do it for money. And so Thalia's, he's basically strong-armed into paying 70,000 credits. Guys, it's just another chapter that like none of these plot threads. Okay, the Thalia thing. What was that? What was he so worried about? I'm so confused. Is that a setup for later?
I think it was more of a payoff, like from the whole.
He was such a jerk before.
Yeah, because they go out of their way to be like, "Hey, Kefali is not a bad guy. He just their Bothans are different, And then,
but he's like, that was the whole speculation, was like that he knew that there was something else in the storehouse that was also worse than the clones. But
yeah. I don't know what that was about.
I was like, what is he so worried about?
I think they imply that it's just the Emperor might have had dirt on the Bothans, not that he had some like a secret Death Star or something.
Yeah,
I think that was it.
The Bothan Death. That's actually how they got all taken out in Return of the Jedi. They had a Bothan specific Death Star. The Both
it was actually Dash Rendar in Shadows of the Empire.
Respect.
Oh, he.
I don't understand the clones and the Ysalamiri being used. So can someone help me with that? Because I'm just like, well, wait a minute. If they're on Tantus with all the clones, how can Sabaoth be taking control of everything?
Well,
because he's by all the cloning tanks.
Yeah, but they say that he does that before. So like he had already gotten a bunch of loyalists to his side.
Okay.
And so he gets a data pad out
Yes.
to them to be able to enact his orders. And then that's when they all go plant bombs on the East Elamari.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But okay, so he's just chilling there, waiting for all like that. But so
because
he's not.
He foresaw that Mara and Luke would come to him. And
Exactly.
that's what he's waiting for.
Yeah, but okay, so he just convinces some people like, oh, you should join my side.
I think that he had gotten in the minds of people before he arrived, because that's what
it was like a mind trick.
Yeah, because that's why that captain guy died.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on there, but I'm still just like, shouldn't, as soon as they get around the East Elamari, like, shouldn't the mind trick wear off? All of that? I mean, Luke can't even see the mountain.
Yeah, but he's not actively doing it. What they explained with that captain guy is that he molds their mind.
He like changed their brain.
He like literally changes their brain chemistry.
Okay.
He's like, oh, the Emperor couldn't even do this. Like, but the reason why that one guy died is because
he messed with him too much.
No, he messed with him and didn't get to finish the process.
Yeah,
because they got into the bubble of the East Elamari, and like all the pieces that he was replacing then kind of died.
Yeah,
in his brain.
Yes,
and he didn't get to finish the job.
Gotcha.
So I think that the people there are like, it's part mind trick, but also they're just loyalists to Joruus.
Him for some reason.
But I mean, why were people loyal to the Emperor? You know.
But I mean, aren't they Thrawn's guys?
Sure, but I mean,
Thrawn's leading them to victory. That's the whole like.
I know, but
allegedly
that like.
I just think it's really weird. That's all I'm saying, and I think it's weird too that like, well, when's he? Whatever, we'll get to it, I guess, because you're saying like
he rewrites their brain to make them think that it is Thrawn's orders. They do say that at some point.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. There you go, Grayson. I mean, that's it right there. He makes all of the people think that it's Thrawn's orders to do what he told them to do.
Okay. All right. So he does that to everybody on the ship, and then they land.
Yeah, he just has a band of
buddies
of the Empire, of the Imperials.
Covell specifically, only Covell, and then they have a meeting in Candace.
Yes, Grayson's right. So he does it to Covell.
Yeah.
And then once they get there, Covell is the captain. All of Covell's men
are listening to him.
Then carry out Covell's orders, who think that Covell got his orders from Thrawn.
Yeah.
So as far as all the people are concerned,
they're just following orders. So he didn't actually Jedi mind trick anybody except for Covell.
Yes.
Grayson's okay, that makes a little bit more sense, because I'm just like, dude, the East Elamari are everywhere. Yeah. Like, there's no way Luke can't even see the mountain.
Well, then he gets the data pad out. Yeah, he's not using the Force.
Yeah,
I know. That's why I was like, it's weird to me that that was what I thought was odd. Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason is Thrawn speculates. He's like, we can't let those troopers back in because he could have done it to them, but it's never confirmed.
Yeah.
It's just like
and then he gets that data pad out to him to get them to start the fight.
I mean, that's his trick or whatever. You know what I mean? Because he can control everybody on that ship and stuff like that. So I just assume
I'm sure he's plenty persuasive without the Force too. You know, he's still
just an old man.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Right?
I guess so.
If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. If you're nothing without the Force, then you shouldn't have it.
It was kind of dumb of them, though, to not put East Elamari on the ship on the way to Wayland. Like,
I agree. Yeah, you should always have one there.
Yeah.
Always. Anytime you're around him. It's weird.
Well, I think the reason why they didn't do that is because Sabayoth wanted to go to Wayland. Yeah. So what reason was there to stop him? Because he wanted to go there. So
yeah. I think at that point, Thrawn was just trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Could have just killed him, but, that's okay. Yeah, what are y'all's thoughts? I'm going to read this passage because I pulled it up about the whole Leia, the key was right in front of her, the key that she'd been searching for, Card's imprisonment on board the Chimera. And then she says, Leia took a deep breath. It's the cloning Garm. I know how Thrawn's growing them so fast. The whole war room had gone dead quiet. Tell me, Bella Bliss said. It's the Force, she told him. It was so obvious, so utterly obvious, and yet she'd missed it completely. Don't you see? When you make an exact duplicate of a sentient being, there's a natural resonance or something set up through the Force between that duplicate and the original. That's what warps the mind of a clone that's been grown too fast. There's not enough time for the mind to adapt to the pressure on it. It can't adjust, so it breaks. And then she's like, Bella was just like, okay, well, what is Thrawn doing about that? She's like using the Islamiri to block the Force away from the cloning things. So I guess it like negates the clone feedback between their Force connection.
I think that in a vacuum, this is super weird, but because of the finale, I think this is given a lot of weight, because when Luke is in the presence of Luke,
well, everyone's in the presence of a Luke, he's like a trimmer. Because Mara's feeling it too.
She can just feel what's going on in Luke's mind, and Luke can't concentrate because it's like his mind is being split.
Yep.
But Mara's not affected by Luke. She can sense that Luke is being affected by it.
I thought that she had a throbbing headache too. Granted, she got hit by lightning, but it seemed like that
it's just Luke, right?
I thought she was getting hit, or she was getting hit by it too, because he's like a trimmer in the Force.
I think he's just a trimmer to Luke.
What's your take, Will?
I always thought that it was because the tremor was big enough that somebody who is Force sensitive can feel it. It's like if you were closer to Alderaan and there was somebody who you loved died on Alderaan, it would have been more terrifying than just Obi-Wan going, it lives, millions of it's vanished. Like, he can feel it. And I think that's kind of the same thing as Mara, where now she can feel what's going on within the Force between Luke and Luke, which I love that we are all grown adults talking about the Force between Luke and Luke. Just to step outside of myself real quick, because that was just awesome to say that in a sentence. I'm almost 30. I love it. But like, I think what's going on between Luke and Luke is kind of like there's like a magnetic field right there, just to step outside and make it more sciencey, that somebody else who works within that magnetic field is bouncing off of it. I think a good way to make it an analogy is kind of like what happens with the Islamari, is when you're within that bubble, it affects you and it takes away sort of things. But like when Luke and Luke are together, that connection, rather than it being like, it's not necessarily a triangle of like Luke is there and everybody feels it. It's like Luke and Luke feel it, but because that is such a weird happenstance within the Force, that everybody else's Force sensitive is like kind of getting that nosebleed from it.
Well, Luke,
honestly, I think of it.
I was just gonna say, Luke even mentions that after it's over, is he said, "Oh, you could sense that too. You could sense that I was having this issue." Tamara.
Yeah, I think it's back to like the original question. I think it's kind of both, where it's like, it's Luke and Luke, but also the feedback is so strong that it's also affecting other people. Like, I don't know. I think it's the mental image that came to my mind is like, okay, like someone on like a jackhammer, like they're going to feel it the strongest, but also the people around them, you're still going to feel the vibration. It's just not as intense, I guess.
And you're still going to get a headache from it being really loud at 3 a.m. Grayson, that was actually a very good analogy.
Oh, thanks, man. Yes, Seth.
Thoughts on calling him Clone Luke for the rest of the time?
Yeah, that's probably good. It does get confusing with the Luke.
It's funny because the book also does that. Like, it still calls him Clone Luke, but with the double U.
Yeah.
And what is the audio? What is the audio?
No, Mark Thompson calls him Luke, but I'm like, it's why are you you even say Clone Luke? You don't have to, but yeah.
And
probably just when like the writing flow makes that work, but otherwise it's probably just a visual cue.
Yeah, and honestly, the way I read it, there's a part where I think the only time it is verbally said by a character is by Sabaoth, but he says my clone Luke or like clone Luke. And I'm like, I don't know. When I read that, I was kind of like, I probably would just imagine him saying just Luke. But I do think we know from earlier on with Sabaoth, like with him being a clone, that it is a definite different pronunciation. That was one of the first identifiers of Thrawn when he was like, hey, he said the name wrong, I think that works for Sabaoth. I don't think they were going that deep with it. It was just to like kind of keep it consistent, I guess.
Yeah.
So
isn't that what Zahn told you guys?
Well, Zahn told us that it was just a visual cue, but I mean, Grayson is correct that in Air, it's not just a visual cue narratively.
Yeah.
Like it's Thrawn, that's his identifier for Jorus being Jorus and not Jorus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for simplicity, we can just say clone Luke for the rest of this. I think that's a good idea.
Good old crazy Luke.
Keep it going. Next chapter.
Keep it going. All right, chapter 23. Yep, we got that. Chapter 24. Luke and Han, they scope out the mountain village below. Luke realizes the mountain is dark in the Force. He can't see anything. It's just like murker. And they begin finding an alternate entrance. Cut over to some of the smugglers. Aves, Gillespie, and the other smugglers arrive at Bilbringi to capture the CGT Rogue Squadron, and the New Republic prep to attack Bilbringi as well. About 3 hours after the smugglers arrive, Pelion once again implores to Thrawn that he thinks Tangreen is the obvious target, but Thrawn again is like, trust me, bro. And they prep for battle at Bilbringi. Back on Wayland, the crew makes it up the mountain to one of the airflow intakes. I believe Mara mentioned this like way earlier on in the book. Mara implores to Luke that if Sabaoth brings her to the dark side and like gets through to her, to kill her. Like, she does not want that to happen. R2 discovers that some of the Poseidons are actually attacking the base of the mountain on orders of Sabaoth. They've been given weapons, and they're attacking the troopers down there at the base. Some of the Miraneshi people approach, and they're like, hey, we want to attack the Imperials, not really to help y'all. We just are kind of like going to help in the chaos. So they're like, all right. So Luke is like, hey, to Yanogri, you help them out, because there's no way they're going to hold up against all of these troopers in this mountain with like a bow and knife. So they they make their way into the airflow duct. And finally, back to Card and Leia, they arrive at Wayland. They use a encrypt signal to make it look like they're Imperials. And then they actually use like the lights on the ship to help find where exactly they entered. And they kind of fake a crash to get closer, is from what I understand. And Card and Leia go in, and they also bring Sturm and Drang, the Vornskir pets. Finally getting the hype they deserve. Finally doing something. A lot going on here, guys.
Would you shake your head at when you mentioned the mountain being dark?
I guess, okay, so maybe I'm dumb and I just don't... Who are they cloning in Tantus?
We don't know.
So
like they make a passing mention that Thrawn handpicked.
Okay, that's what I thought. They're just guys, right?
Just dudes, yeah.
So, and it's the cloning process that is what's causing the tremors in the Force.
So the way that the book explains it is like when a clone is created,
it
has like a link
to the original.
To the original. Okay. Like
so
through like the cosmic force.
So the originals must be dead, whoever the guys that they're cloning.
Maybe.
Then. Because how would the clones not even be, like, wouldn't their heads be freaking out too?
It's to all the other clones, since they're all the same person.
Yeah.
Like they're all, if the Force were allowed to just operate without the Ysalamari, the way I understand it is it's like hive mind stuff going on, and they go crazy because it's like their mind is being split over and over again.
Gotcha.
It's like they're, how Luke, he senses the clones during the end of the last book. How they all have like this weird imprint in the Force. It's like everybody has their own.
They're all the same person
in the Force.
Yeah.
And so the Force is like, to use a Lord of the Rings quote, they're like butter scraped across too much bread.
Yeah.
So that's
I got you. I just am still like, again, I guess I just don't know when, never mind. It's fine. We'll just keep going. It's weird to me. I think all of this just sounds weird to me.
Okay.
That's all it is. Yeah. I still don't.
Is it okay if I...
Yeah, go, Grayson.
I was just going to say, so the first thing is, Seth, you know about Horcruxes? You know those work?
Yes.
Harry Potter. Imagine the Ysalamiri negate the negative effects of a Horcrux. Like, instead of a Horcrux being one life shred, they're like, hey, so this is normally what cloning does, where it's like this whole thing, but we have this creature, and now it makes it where it's actually just a brand new person. And to also state, yes, at the beginning of Dark Force Rising, they mention, he asks Covell to make a recommendation list of the best men in the raid on Merkur because he's trying to compile the best of the best in his military to be cloning templates. So it's not just one person. It's like they don't really say how many specifically.
Yeah, it's a few.
My only thought is, so they just keep Ysalamiri all over then to make sure these clones don't.
No.
Or is it only during the process?
It's only during the cloning process. That's why they say, like, normally it would take 10 years because their minds have to develop.
Yes.
But Thrawn has tried to accelerate the process by making them, fully grown adults in the matter of like 20 days. What'd they say? 21 days?
Yeah.
It's only during that process that they need the Ysalamiri there.
Gotcha.
Once the minds are fully developed, then they can go on and do what they need to do.
Gotcha. But then also, these guys can't be around the originals either.
No, they can.
Then what's going on with Luke and other Luke then? Is it because he's a Force user?
Yes, yeah.
And so that doesn't happen because these are just normal guys. And
I would say so, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So because they're normal guys, and then during their process, they stopped that also from the interesting. Okay. All right.
I think that you're getting confused because like cosmic force and then like, what is it? Living force is like what's in you. There's the two.
Well, I'm also trying not to think about metachlorians or anything like that either. That it's like, no, I'm not bringing in any other canon. I'm only using just this stuff.
Will is will of the Force. Maybe he has an answer.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to ask another question. That it makes it super murky, at least for me, when Luke is having a hard time sensing all of the clones in Dark Force Rising. If he senses so like voluminous of clone Luke, where like it's so much that, and I understand it's a clone of himself, but like that it's so much where everything else is like hard for him to figure out, and it's almost like a Ysalamiri is there of like it's dampening his senses, and it's hard for him to think. It's like a migraine. With all of those clones, he says it's like hard for him to sense them because of their connection with the Force. But if all of this is based on their own connection with the Force, it is weird that he is not able to sense them. He
is able to sense them. He just has a hard time differentiating one from the other, right? Like he just thinks
I thought it was something like he's like, I can't like maybe it was a tell them apart sort of thing. I thought it was more like he was confused because it was more like a black spot where he just couldn't figure out where they all were at the same time, and then it was like, oh, because they're clones and it's Force sensitive. Crazy.
I would think it was just because, like, if you're an adult, like all of us here, like normally, right? If we're in the Star Wars world, and if Luke sensed us, like we have our own identifiable place because we have memories and all of these things. Like that's what makes us. Whereas these clones, I'm sure if you reach out to them, it's like, wait, this guy, it's an adult, I think, but there's nothing there, and it's the same as this. That's so bizarre. That's how I'm imagining Luke is like so confused because of the numbers aren't adding up in his head.
They've only been alive for 21 days.
Exactly. So it's like they got no memories yet. They're that's how I imagine.
Huh. That makes sense. No, I like that. It's like tuning a radio.
Mortis
getting the bad frequency.
I was going to say two things I wanted to mention. I know in the last one we mentioned in Clone Wars, the 08 Clone Wars, Yoda talking about how all of the clones have individual identities in the Force. I think this actually still makes sense because the Ysalamiri are repressing their individual identities in the Force, which is why they're able to grow so fast and why the clones in the prequels do have individual identities. And they're like kind of like what we read in Plagueis, how when you like Plagueis was really messing with the way the Force works, and so the Force kind of bit back. So this is like very much Seth, it should be very weird because this is a very unnatural thing that they're doing, even when it comes to like the realm of cloning, because it's like, hey, these actually are just like zombie people, basically. Like they're just the same guy, and they don't have any individual identity because of what they did with the Ysalamiri. And I think that actually makes it cooler when you look at the clones in Clone Wars, and they're being like, hey, they actually had to grow them for a prolonged period of time because they didn't have the Ysalamiri. These were all like individual people. And the other what
I think is odd too is then like, because when he's growing clone Luke, he has to do the same thing to him, right?
Potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just also thinking about that it's like, does clone Luke, in which I guess that when we get there, I don't think he has any memories. I think he's just a shell of him. Yeah, that he's just a guy with a lightsaber because he doesn't even speak.
I even think he says like Sabaoth says, or Luke gets the feeling that Sabaoth's almost like kind of loosely controlling him, like he's like a proxy for Sabaoth.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, Mara makes he's just a body and Sabaoth's controlling him. Yeah. And I think maybe he was just a first batch. Like the idea is like he'll clone Luke anyway. Yeah.
No, I think this all is like,
it's just odd, I guess. And granted, I read this so long ago that like but when I'm really sitting thinking about it in my like Star Wars now that I like
I think it's supposed to be weird.
Like, it is interesting, but it's like, right? It's really like Sith magic, dark science. That's what it feels like.
I mean, it does pose an interesting philosophical question. It's like, when do they get their identity? I almost imagine it like it's like a tether. And if the tether is cut too soon, like growing them in 21 days, then they're just going to die. They're going to go crazy. Yeah. But if you let them go for the right amount of time, then they can be severed from the tether. Whereas like if the Ys Alamari are there, and you don't need the tether at all. They can grow on their own. Yeah. That's the way I saw it.
And they're Flash teaching them, right? Isn't that the other thing? Didn't they say that? Yeah. It's the same thing that they did to Finn and all them. Okay.
Will, I saw your hand up.
No, I was just going to say that I think that we are doing all of this is fun because it does have to do with the Force. And anytime, sorry to bring up Sam Witwer again, I know I'm that guy, but anytime it's Force questions and they ask Sam Witwer about it, it's also, he prefaces everything with, hey, we're not really supposed to understand it. Yeah. This is the way we can interpret it. But it is a little bit like, that's the hard part of Star Wars when it comes to like the science versus like the mysticism, is when somebody like a Sabaoth is mixing the two, or like when Palpatine does it, it's like, well, wait, and then we get stuff like the Force Unleashed, and I know that's Legends now, and obviously this is Legends, but like I don't think we're supposed to understand it from a ground level of like, and here's the thing, I don't think everybody who's writing about it necessarily understands it either, or maybe they think they understand it, but whoever else is also like consulting on the book, maybe they understand it in a completely different way. And it's just, those are two different ways of understanding it. We both say we understand it, but it's not like there's just one basis for it all.
Kind of like a Russo's and Endgame thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where they disagree about how the time travel actually works.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. No, that's 100%. That's a great example. And I think that's kind of what this chalks up to.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I like all this stuff, but I think it's a little confusing when you start thinking about it. That like, it's just like, this is a lot. This is weird. That like,
Grayson, your thought?
I this is the last thing I was going to say about this, because we were talking about how Luke senses like all of the clones and how they kind of feel off to him, and then the feedback that he gets from, or the pressure that he gets from the other clone of like, I kind of view it. Another analogy is like radios, where like, okay, he is a radio. He has a frequency. Everybody has a frequency. And the other, like the Luke or clone Luke is the exact same frequency as him, but it's stronger because he's Force sensitive. And so there's going to be way more feedback.
Yes.
Now with the clones, like the Stormtrooper clones, they have their own frequency, but what it feels so weird is because it's like, they're all different ones, but they all feel the exact same, but they're not as strong. They're not Force sensitive. So it's not like causing this like pain in his head or like this pressure in his head. It's just like, this feels weird, you know? Like, whereas if say Luke was ever to encounter the Bad Batch, or, you know, the like just clones from the Clone Wars, they're just going to be like regular people because they didn't go through that weird Ys Alamiri cloning process. Maybe that's a weird way I'm jumping hoops to explain it, but I guess that's just kind of the way I view it. But like Will said, like it's, I don't, it also doesn't help. Like, we're viewing this in so many different like wavelengths of like, well, this is already the expanded universe, and then cloning became a big thing in the prequels, and then but it still was in continuity with the prequels. But now there's new cloning information regarding canon, so it's like 3 different 3 to 4 different ways of looking at cloning. So it's like I try not to look into it too much because I'm like, it was written in 1994, But
I'm a big fan of.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. What did you?
I'll get to it when they're actually fighting.
Okay,
I'll bring it up.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of. I guess just how does a story make me feel? Like first and foremost, before I even get to canon or logic or anything. I made this point. I don't remember when. Maybe it was on this stream or maybe it was our show. I don't know. But about the throne room fight in The Last Jedi, because people tear apart that choreography, right? They're like, I can't believe and don't get me wrong. It's great when
with the Praetorian guards,
great choreography can come together with how it's supposed to make you feel. And so I guess the point I'm making here is that throne room fight does make me feel what I'm supposed to feel. First and foremost, I get what the movie is trying to tell me. And yeah, I could sit there and nitpick and be like, yeah, but this guy's knife disappears. It's like, but be real. Nobody noticed that the first time they watched it. And so to go back to this, it's like, yeah, now we have all these kind of, as Reese is saying here in our chat, like overlapping truths. And it's like the campfire story thing. And like, but first and foremost, how did that make me feel when I read it? I felt Leia's revelation. I felt how that mattered to the group, and maybe I don't understand it completely. And maybe it conflicts a little bit with, in my mind, how this all should work. But first and foremost, I think it made me feel the right amount of urgency. Like, oh, shoot, we need to get there and stop this because this is how they're making it happen. I think as a story and as a writer, that is your first job, is to make sure the audience or your reader, your viewer, whatever, feels what they need to feel.
Yep.
Will, what's up?
Hey, have I talked about Sam Witwer yet? In an interview with Sam Witwer, it was a while back. But what I always use as an example, at least for me, he talks about him and his buddies who all watch Star Wars and they're all working for Lucasfilm. But the way that they explain it is there's a window of when you love Star Wars the most, and we all love Star Wars now, but where it's that pure love of Star Wars where you're just watching it and yeah, you're trying to understand it, but there's no, that you're not jaded or you don't have other media where you're or go to film school or any of those things where you then try and piece it apart from different stories. It's just like you said, Connor, how you made it feel or how it made you feel. And the way he explains it is, rather than, and this is something that he said he needed to learn, and it's something that I've needed to learn as well. When you go into something like this, viewing it through that window first, rather than piecing it apart from outside of that window of, hey, I love this so much, and now I'm going to go into it. Sorry, your focus determines your reality, but the way you step into it being the most important thing, and then it's probably going to make you feel a whole lot better if you're like, man, I really love this, and then you go into it, rather than, man, I really love this, I hope they don't screw up, like that perspective, or man, I really love this, but I bet it's not going to make any sense because they already did this wrong and I already don't. Like, when you have that mentality, it's probably not going to be as fun, and it's not going to be as fun as when we were all kids and why we wanted to watch it in the first place. But yeah, just had to throw out the Sam Witwer analogy again. There'll probably be like 50 more as we keep going.
Hey, did you know Sam Witwer's going to Rebel ScumCon? You're wearing a shirt, I noticed.
What? I'm so stoked, dude.
Be there, guys. Be there. All right. We talked about clones for like an hour, I swear. We're gonna get through this. All right.
Getting real deep.
Deep in the lore.
Chapter 25. Deep into the lore. This honestly might have been the deepest we've gotten into like lore stuff in a while, which, hey, I'm here for. Chapter 25. Within Tantus, the Wayland crew, that's what I call them, by the way, the Wayland crew. I'm not listing all the names.
The Tantus Task Force.
Yes. TTF. They cause some chaos before trying to make a plan to bring the whole place down. Mara suggests going to the throne room, and Luke joins because they're hoping to find possibly a self-destruct system or sequence, because Palpatine is clever like that. Han, he goes after them, discovering that their comms are jammed, and Sabaoth is there. Lando and Chewie, they start planning explosives on the central equipment column in kind of the main cloning chasm, per se. Back to the Imperial fleet, they arrive at Bilbringi with Aves and the smugglers, thinking they've been betrayed by Card, but then realizing it is for the rebels and that they actually they miscalculated that the rebels and them are all attacking the same place. Back over with Mara and Luke, they make it to the throne room, and it's very similar to the design of the Return of the Jedi with some moderate tweaks.
Flair.
Yeah, it's got some flair. But hey, Sabaoth says he's there. He turns the chair around and goes, "What's up?" That's the end of the chapter.
We already passed the last command moment.
No.
Is that coming up?
No,
No.
that's
Hasn't
like
happened
the
yet.
very
Oh,
end of it's like the
27,
very
my
end
bad.
of
Okay.
chapter. Yeah, 27. Yes, I like the TTF, as you call it. I like them kind of inside, like when they get inside the mountain. That's cool. But as soon as Mara and Luke were like, "We're going to the throne room," I was like, "Finally!"
Yeah,
I was
let's
like,
do
"We're
this."
I was like, "It's happening," because as a reader, you know what's gonna happen. Like Sabaoth's gonna be there, and you're like, "Let's go."
This is a great build up, great tension building chapter. But we can, if anybody else have any thoughts, or we want to move on into this fight.
I want to do. I will say. I think that you could have easily. You guys are talking about Han and Talon Card could have been rolled together. You could have taken Talon Card and given his stuff to Han and Lando.
Yeah,
because I feel like Lando's not doing anything either.
I kept forgetting
Lando
he was
too.
here,
Yeah.
and then he would. I'm like, oh yeah.
Another plot thread that is never followed up on is his city getting completely like just ransacked, and he's like, "Man, I've only got 20 something days or 30
or it
days
all gets burned up.
Yeah, he goes to Coruscant. Literally doesn't matter anymore. Like, I mean, I'm assuming he gets it all operating before then, but they're like, you don't get like a little follow up with them or with him or Han and Leia or really anybody except. I'm sorry, I feel like such a hater right now. I like this book. Okay,
I know, right? That's kind of how I've been feeling. I'm like, man,
You're tough on the things you love.
that's true. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
26.
And honestly, I will admit my expectations maybe were a little too high, and that's okay. That's on me. Chapter 26, Mara is unable to find the self-destruct on the throne. The Sabaoth, he is going on some mad ramblings. And Luke kind of drops the bombshell of like, bro, you're a clone, right? Sabaoth activates a switch, which brings back the Force in the mountain. More on that later. And he immediately lashes out lightning at Mara. Luke defends her before Sabaoth reveals a clone of Luke. Spoilers, we already ruined that. That's okay. And that he made from his hand on Cloud City, and with the old Skywalker saber in tow. Luke
Still attached.
begins to fight him, deciding to help stay and fight up. He doesn't want to leave Mara. He doesn't want to give up on his promise. Lando and Chewie, they get pinned down, trapping themselves. They're on like one of the levels working on that column. Chewie creates a backup plan that would make sure that the whole place would come down on them. It would just be a lot more risky, but they're going to withhold that for now. 3PO, R2, and some of the Nogri, they go to disable the comm jammer so they can get in contact with the others. Back to good old Wedge Antilles, the New Republic. They're ambushed. That's it. And then Han runs into Leia and Card. Leia reveals the Force is active again because, of course, he can't sense it, and that they got to go help Luke and Mara right now because obviously they know Sabaoth's there, and the Force is on. The reveal of the clone is pretty cool, man.
This was my whoa moment that I had, because as soon as that happened, I was like, this is the connection of the "you will kill Luke Skywalker."
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that's how he's tying this thread up. That's so cool, because they've gone so hard in this book with Mara and the brainwashing that she has. Like, that's not really her. Even Luke brings it up several times. Like, that's just the Emperor's voice, and she's trying to convince herself that it's not. And dude, that moment where it's revealed, I was like, oh my gosh, that's how this gets resolved.
Sick.
That's so awesome. Great. One of the best payoffs, I think, probably the best payoff in this trilogy. So good.
Facts. I agree. Yes, Will.
Sabaoth talking about how what he did will work because it's the thing that the Emperor could never do is so sick. Even though I guess the Emperor does kind of end up doing it a bunch of times. But like, at least at this moment where he could never push himself into another being or lengthen his life, and that's why the Jedi, or that's why the Sith are stupid, and that's why the Jedi are stupid, and that's why Sabaoth says this is what he says something about like this is what being a true Jedi really is, or something along that lines to Mara, which is wild when it's usually Sith or Jedi, and it's not. What if I consider myself a Jedi, but it's with all of the want of the Sith, which is so sick. And then honestly, just the, like you said, Connor, the wow factor of, oh, this is how they're going to tie that up. It's extremely cool to think about Luke's perspective of seeing what he could have become. I love thinking of that.
Oh,
of like,
dude, when he talks about the cave, and he's like, he
so
thinks,
Dude,
he's like, is it a clone of Vader? And then he's like, oh wait, he's like, I remember like the end of that vision. It's me.
It's me. It's so good because it does. It's like, what if it was literal from what happens in Return of the Jedi, where it's, no, I don't want to be like my father, and that's why my face is in the mask. But this one is like, what if it's not the mask, it's me wearing them. It's literally why this book is so good at the end. And look, I love Return of the Jedi. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. When I sit down to rewatch Return of the Jedi, I have to be like, okay, I'm going to watch the whole movie. But a lot of times I just go back and watch those small parts of like either the very beginning at Jabba's palace or the very end with Luke and the Emperor. And if this was an animated movie or a live action or anything, it's so much fun to go back and like, I'm very excited that we were doing this entire trilogy. This is what I wanted to get to out of this entire thing, because it wraps up everything that I love about Star Wars and pushes it forward into a new evolution of like, well, all of that stuff is really cool and it's still cool, but certain point of view, let's look at it from a different perspective. It's so much fun. This is the best. This is my favorite Zahn writing in this moment.
Agreed.
I was.
will be RB,
can I go ahead and cover 27 so I can read the quote, like read the end of that chapter, just because it's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I will be RB. By the way.
Okay. Perfect. I'll wait for you to get back so I read the bars that Zahn's about to spit. Chapter 27. Luke fights off the clone while Mara regains her strength and mental balance. Han, Leia, and Card arrive. And Han tries to shoot him, but Mara's blaster is destroyed, kind of used as an object in the way. Han and Leia end up getting hurt from first lightning and then second from this fallen catwalk. Yep. So Luke offers, he's like, stop, let everybody go, including Mara. I will serve you. Back to Lando and Chewie, they continue working as troopers, try to breach the level. Comms are restored by 3PO and R2, and Card contacts them. And basically, he's like, hey, bring up one of those Isla Miri. And Lando's like, oh, those are all, that's what all the little smoke was. Okay, yeah. So they're all killed. That was what Sabaoth did. Lando orders the Nogri and the droids. He's like, get out. We're going to just destroy the place. And hopefully we can get everybody out of here. But at the very least, we can bring it down this whole place on Sabaoth. Back in the throne room, battle goes on. Sabaoth takes the weapons of everybody. But Mara very quickly, using the Force, intercepts Leia's lightsaber and cuts down clone Luke in a moment. This was specifically the moment where I went, yes, like let's go. Like it's so hype. I want to read it, but I want Connor to be here because I know how much he likes it. But go ahead, Seth.
I can say that like this is so in the comic. She catches it and drops down like that, basically. the Star Wars miniature of her is in that position, which I think is really cool.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, like it is literally for like verbatim. And I wish I would have brought it because I have her. Like she's one of my favorite pieces.
Man.
But I left it at home, and I will bring it on the next stream. But yeah, she has dropped down. It is that frame, like looking like that. Like she's just caught the lightsaber and she's about ready to shove it into him.
Yeah.
So I will ask.
Sorry, I was going to ask, is that, because maybe it's just different in the comic and that's okay. Is that not when she kills Sabaoth? Because I know when she kills Sabaoth, it's like she does like a roll and a stab, but maybe
in the comics, she like jumps at him and just like stabs him in the back.
She like with a hand behind it too to make sure it goes.
Yeah,
through.
in this,
Right
I was gonna say,
through
in
it.
this, she catches it, drops down, and then shoves it up into his chest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, I have it right here. I don't know if it helps.
Oh, you have the comic?
I was just about to do the same thing.
Oh, heck yeah. Sorry, the quality on my end is a little low, so I'm gonna try to see if I can see it. That one I intentionally kind of avoided looking at the comic too much because I didn't want it to like influence like.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, in the future,
I don't know if anybody can even see this or if it's gonna be too blurry when I get up close. It's
For me,
can you
is
guys
it the
see
one
it?
on the right?
It's that.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah, I can see
She's
it
literally in
loosely.
that position.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
That's
she
so
double
dope.
hands it into his. She like double hands it right into his chest. It's cool.
That's sick.
Yeah,
Oh my go, man. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and read this since because I don't want to hold us on.
You're
too
fine.
long, and I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna just read the full page. Skywalker hadn't been backing into a wall after all. He'd been backing into one of the throne room's view screens. The clone shrieked, the first sound Mara could remember hearing him make, as he staggered backward. He spun toward the sound of her lightsaber, his face twisted with anger and fear, his eyes still dazzled. He raised his lightsaber to attack. You will kill Luke Skywalker. She ducked beneath the slashing blade, gazing into his face, Skywalker's face, the face that had haunted her nightmares for nearly 6 years, the face the Emperor had ordered her to destroy. You will kill Luke Skywalker. And for the first time since she'd found Skywalker in his crippled X-Wing floating in deep space, she let herself give in to the voice swirling through her mind. With all of her strength, she swung her lightsaber and cut him down. The clone crumpled, his lightsaber clattering to the floor beside him. Mara gazed down at him, and as she took a ragged breath, the voice in the back of her mind, fell silent. It was done. She had fulfilled the Emperor's last command, and she was finally free.
Yep.
name of the
So
book.
cool.
Name of the book.
I love that. That was another
Dude.
audible like.
Connor, I think your mic might be muted, buddy.
It was. Thank you.
Just to
That was
no
like
problem.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
I love
You know
that
that
moment.
like the meme of like the guys in the theater of like where they're like sitting there, and then it's like then they're like doing the cheering, you know? It's like I feel like it's like when like a Wedge Antilles chapter, it's like just me sitting there, but then it's like all when this happens, you're like, yes, dude, it's so good. Yeah, it's great.
It was great. Great kind of conclusion to Mara's arc. I love that moment after when her and Luke are talking where she's like, hey, you know, your mind's all cleared up. And he's like, how about yours? And she's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good, bro.
Yep. Yeah. She's like, she got it out of her system. Yes, Seth.
Talking about the comic too, one last other neat thing is when when Juris is pulling the lightsaber and she grabs it out of the sky. It's the same basically position that Luke catches his lightsaber from R2.
So
And
like
that,
that.
yep,
Oh,
that she catch,
nice.
and it's the same thing that's in the Heir to the Empire, where he's having the vision again, where she catches that lightsaber.
That's cool.
So,
I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
That is such a cool visual too.
yeah.
That's
So,
sick.
anyway,
Big fan of
neat.
that.
What you missed was that the Star Wars miniature from Wizards of the Coast is this image.
Cool.
Is her catching the lightsaber
Did
right
you
before she
respond?
says
We
it.
responded to Raladam there.
I have not. I didn't know how to make it bigger to do anything. The comics are like an abridged version of it, so you're gonna get you're gonna miss some meat and potatoes, but maybe I don't know. I haven't actually it has been it's been a while since I've reread the comics. I've just been rereading the books. So yeah, I don't know.
It cuts out some like mental fluff, I would say, but it gives you everything you need for the story for sure.
Yeah, and definitely the art isn't as good in the first one.
Did Thrawn die yet? Did I miss?
We only did 27.
We're about to do 28 right now, which is chapter 28. The battle proceeds at Bilbringi with Thrawn and Pelion planning on letting Akbar escape so he can be framed once again for betrayal, which I actually did like this moment. We go over to Aves. He reaches out to Wedge and he's like, yo, let's team up. We can take out this battle station and it's going to divert some of the Imperial forces so we can escape and it can help y'all's battle. Like it's a win-win. Back with Sabaoth, he lashes out in the room, pulling a Obi-Wan in the finale of Kenobi, just causing rocks to fly everywhere from this cavern.
Yeah.
And announcing that, hey, if I can't do it with Luke, I'll do it to you, Mara. I'll just either you'll serve me or I'll make a clone of you as well. Back with Lando and Chewie, they end up blowing the main column and cut the walkway with like this really kind of clever dynamic moment where it like swings down and they're able to like cut down to a lower level. Which I really enjoyed that. Han tells he's like, just get out while you can. There's nothing you can do. Just go ahead and get out. Luke makes one last plea to Sabaoth. He's kind of at this point, he's like up to like his waist in rocks. And he gets like hit on the head at one point. And Sabaoth, of course, he is just so far gone at this point. And Mara ends up breaking free of the rocks as well and attacks Sabaoth. And she's kind of getting pelted with all of these rocks and she can't see. And Leia helps her, like actually like gives her like the visuals she needs so she can like block it. And then Luke actually cuts the leash of the Vornskirs to go like to give a distraction. So between all of that, Mara is able to get the distraction on him and stab Sabaoth and finally ending him and causing this giant big blue explosion, much like what we see with Palpatine. And from this, it actually shows a little bit of cracks in the back wall, and they're like, "Hey, if we can get a ship up here, we can get out of here like now." Back in the battle, Pelion gets the report of Wayland that it's collapsed and presumably Sabaoth is dead, and he is immediately attacked by Rook, a throat slice, and then Thrawn looks over at Thrawn, stabbed right through the back of his chair. I know that panel of the comic very well, and they make an order to retreat. There's like Pelion is so blindsided that they're like, all right, I'm dying right now. We need to go. So, yeah. Go ahead, Seth.
Do you think that like that last line Thrawn says about that it was beautiful? Do you think that was watching Pelion get stabbed?
No, because he says but, right?
What? But what? Yeah, what's he talking about?
I think he's talking about like himself. Like, but I did everything so artistically.
Oh, artistically, yes, yeah. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter in the end.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't know.
Will,
I think it's in reference to himself only because the only thing, at least for me, that makes it make sense as to why Thrawn had to die at the end and why come the end of this book he's not really around and it's more of the Sabaoth Luke show. His hubris is at an all-time high, and the entirety of Thrawn's character within this trilogy where we know him, and you can talk even about other media where you see him, he's not a very prideful being. He's always analytical, but towards the end of this, up to his own folly, he flew a little high too close to the sun, where he was so like, oh, I already know this is going to work. To the fact that the Nogri thing, he just like doesn't really follow up on it, and then that's his own undoing when Rook kills him, where he's always analytical and thinking about even emotions of other people, of how it will work. And here at the end of this book, he's just all in his own head. And that's why you really don't see him, because he's not doing anything. He's like anybody else, any other admiral in the Empire. And that's obviously, as soon as he makes that flip and he stops being Thrawn, that's when he dies, which I think is extremely cool.
You know what, Will? I think you just gave me a new appreciation for this, because like the whole back half of this book, he's so adamant that like, no, I'm right about this, about that. What's that planet called, Grayson, that they're attacking?
That they're going to attack Bilbrini and not Tangreen.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear what you said. So we're going to attack this planet to steal the gravity thing. And he's so adamant. And Pelion's like, I think you're wrong. And he's like, no. And then he is right, but it doesn't matter. Like, he is so caught up in being right all the time that it's like, that didn't matter in the end. It's like, you can have all that, but if you don't cover your bases with this other stuff, like, it doesn't matter. And like, that's kind of cool that it ends up, he's not wrong about anything per se. Like, he knew that the Noghri were treacherous. He just didn't think that they were capable of anything. And so what's kind of neat is that, in the end, he was right about everything, but it didn't matter. He still died. And that's kind of interesting.
His final words were him showing how much pride he had in his own plan right before he died. And it did work, because he died.
It's interesting.
But it was so beautifully done and dead.
You know, that does give me an extra.
I actually really like that.
Yeah. I Thrawn, because it's always kind of bothered me, knowing what we know now about Thrawn, that this is the end of him, where I'm like, because it's just like, you could have done, like, he didn't have to, because once again, he didn't have a mirror anywhere else. But it does make sense that they won in the way they did because of his own hubris. And it also makes Thrawn a little bit cooler, because if he didn't fall into his own self-pride, would they still have won the same way? Or would they have won it all? Because if Thrawn was actually acting at 100% capacity and not at 100% pride, maybe Thrawn still would have won.
I think the main thing for me is still that it has no connection to our main guys on the ground. I would have liked it just something where it's,
because it happens off by itself.
Like maybe when Leia gets that revelation about being on the about Card being on the Chimera, she's like, wait a minute, he has a Noghri on there too, right? You know, or something like that, right? There's like some connection that somebody makes, and they're like, hey, can we get word out? And like, maybe that's a mission. We don't even need to see it. It's just, we see the beginning of it where Leia's like, hey, you two that are with us on Wayland right now, can you guys get a message to that Noghri on Thrawn's ship? And they're like, maybe. And so you don't know if maybe they can do it until that final moment. I just would have liked some connection. That's all. Like, I love all of it. And this
Force to talk to him would have been cool too, because she has that, the daughter of Darth Vader connection with all of them. If she was able to use her Force sensitive side of things, where she's talking to her own twins before they're born, and she's speaking to Mara Jade, and she's doing all this through the Force, and she's able to sense the source and all of that. If she figured it out and used the Force to be like, hey, Rook, and then gave Rook the idea, I think that would have been cool too.
Or like even use Ghent, right? Like they had him there as a plot device. Hey, like they even went out of their way to show that he had Imperial crypt codes and stuff.
Yep.
Patch me into Rook on the Chimera. You know, do something like I just wanted something. That's all. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm very happy with the conclusion. I just wanted there to be some connection with our main heroes getting their win here. That's all.
It feels very B-side plot. Like, oh, and yeah, he died. I love the way that Rook does it. But yeah, I mean, even if it like somehow the Noghri were involved in the battle of Bilbrini, or like maybe there was like something, you know, like to make Rook be like, oh, like, because that is one thing for me is like, I think would have gone a long way. The very minimal connection is just having a scene with Rook properly finding out, like, because I feel like he is the one that's so dissociated from the greater Noghri people and then him to be like, oh, really? That's what's happened, but it's just kind of more implied. But yeah, Will, what do you think?
I also think it's cool too, because once again, it's his own folly, because he's throughout, I mean, his entire like introduction at the beginning of this book, it's him talking about, in a way, not to underestimate anything, especially the way, not to underestimate any species, where it's from the perspective of Thrawn, and you look at the Empire of like, they're not necessarily the most inclusive when it comes to the species that they use within the Empire. And then you have somebody like Thrawn, who's Chiss, and him being the advocate for, no, don't underestimate anyone and don't underestimate any species. And then the species he was basically just using the entire time is the one to take him out. I think it's cool.
That's great.
And would it have been cool if somebody else had a little bit of involvement in it, or like, I don't know, like when Sabaoth blew up, that was the signal where Thrawn gets like, you see it from space and you're like, whoa, and Thrawn gets distracted and then he dies. Like, I like, and that's where he starts to lose his own confidence of like, oh wait, he's gone. And that's when he dies. Like there's a million things that I guess could have had. I don't know. It's just, I get it where it's like, yeah, it's a little B plotty, but it makes sense.
Hand me that piece of literature right there next to you, Seth.
I definitely think it could have just been expanded upon, but I love that Rook actually did it. Yeah.
Here, I'll make a comparison to this right here. Ooh. So this is a book that I think relishes in its ending. This Last Command is a book that does not. Like when Palpatine finally kills Plagueis, he's just talking about it for like 4, 5, 6 pages. Yep. Like it goes, and it's great because you're like, man, he is really absorbing this moment. Whereas in Last Command, blink and you miss it. Thrawn's dead, you know? And it's like, I would have liked a moment where we could really relish in our win. Like even in ROTJ, we get that moment, right? When the Emperor, he falls to his death. And then you have a moment where Luke gets to kind of sit there with Vader. And like, not even when they are out talking, when they're just sitting there, and it's like, you get that moment. And like, in here, you don't get that time to just absorb, reflect, you know, then that's my main issue with it. It's like,
don't in the comic.
like imagine in Return of the Jedi, Vader tosses the Emperor into the reactor shaft. He blows up and then it cuts and that's it. And we're on Endor. It's like, but what happened? Yeah. Like, and then you see Vader's body burning. It's like, but what? We don't get a moment to, you know, falling action out of that to breathe. Like, that's what it feels like to me. It's upsetting.
That's kind of how it was supposed to end, right? Where it was originally supposed to end where Luke is just watching over the burning body and then he just walks out into the sunset. Like it's a Western.
But I still think that he talked to Vader on the Death Star. But yes, that is true. That wasn't in there originally. But like the burning of the body wasn't in there because test screening, I think, was like, man, maybe Vader lived.
Yeah.
So like now we got to make sure he's dead. Burn his body. Yeah.
I'll splinter the mind's eye of them.
Shall I move on to the very final chapter?
Seth, you had your hand up.
I did, and then I'm like, I think that like. It's fine. I was just trying to think about too more of like what you said, that like why you it's weird too that like Rook doesn't have a whole lot to do and all of a sudden he's the one that gives the final blow, and then like it's just like, but when could anybody even have he's so disconnected from everybody. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm like, I think it's poetic that he's the one that does it, but still that it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also just can't imagine Rebels Rook killing
like
Rebels Thrawn.
I think it would have been also better if we could have seen what Thrawn was doing, like that, like if they had set up like some sort of like kind of like in episode 4, how there's a countdown, like Thrawn's about ready to do something crazy and then Rook decides to do it, but it seems so just like they're just chilling out there and then Rook decides to do it. Does that make sense?
Low stakes.
Yeah, that like he just does it rather than like, you know, there's a countdown to something crazy. I also really like. I'll throw this in since we're moving on to the end. I think it's cool that like as opposed to like Palpatine's just shooting lightning, like Jarrus is like bringing down an entire mountain. Like I think that I like that visual, and it's very like I guess kind of anime. That like he's got in the comic, he's got like a force shield around him as like everything's all falling on him and falling on everybody else. And I'm just like, this guy's like powerful in a different way than how Palpatine was. Like I think Palpatine's just so much more reserved, and Jarrus is like literally out of his mind. So like, you know, just whatever with the Force, I'm just going to do it all. And I just think that that's at least different enough for me. Yeah.
William.
Last weird suggestion I'll make of how it could have connected just a little bit better with Rook, at least for me. I am not Timothy Zahn, and I am not a 100th of the writer that wizard is, of what he was able to create with all this stuff. But if Rook kills him, and then we're all like, wait, what happened? And then it cuts back to like Leia at some point, and she explains that when she first met Rook with Chewbacca in Air, that this was part of her plan of like Rook was going to work behind the scenes and then eventually kill him. I think would be just a little like the only and I don't know, like obviously you would need to work out, but just if you were to go far enough back where Leia was the one to like work out this plan of how Rook was going to be the one to like lurk around and then eventually kill Thrawn, because she knew that it was going to be him underestimating Rook and all of that. It would have been very cool, because Thrawn as the tactician would have lost, and then Leia, who steps into the General Organa role as the tactician and more of like the battle ready Leia of being in the war room and setting out plans, that being her like proof of, yeah, she has the Force, and yeah, she is the other, but she's also just incredibly smart when it comes to like battle ready warfare. I just think that would have been a cool flip of like, oh yeah, Leia one-upped Thrawn. Like nobody was able to one-up Thrawn this entire time except for Leia. I just think that would have been cool.
I agree. Facts.
Let's wrap this up.
29, final chapter. Didn't even have time to write a summary, but that's okay because I remember what happens. We cut to Coruscant sometime later after the battle, and we get this beautiful scene of Mara appreciating the cityscape of Coruscant, of the Imperial City, in a new light. And Luke approaches her, asking her once again, what is he doing? Once again, at least implied that like he wants her, or at least the New Republic wants her to kind of be like this smuggler liaison, because Talon Card, you know, he doesn't really want to do it, but Mara's kind of the perfect person where like now the New Republic trusts her and Luke trusts her, but yet she's enough in that world, and there's still Imperials out there. There's still information that needs to be gained. Like, if she's open to doing that. And also, he gifts her with the Skywalker saber, and I'm gonna read that here because again, it's short and sweet, but I think it's pretty great. He says, so she it would start here. Just this, reaching into his tunic, he pulled out a lightsaber. What's this? Mara asked, frowning. It's my old lightsaber, Luke told her quietly. The one I lost at Cloud City and nearly got killed with at Wayland. He held it out. I'd like you to have it. She looked up at him, startled. Me? Why? He shrugged self-consciously. Lots of reasons. Because you earned it, because you're on your way to becoming a Jedi and you'll need it. Mostly, though, because I want you to have it. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she took the weapon. And then he says, you're welcome. He touched her hand again. I'll be in the conference room with the others. Come on down when you've decided. And of course, she deliberates very briefly, but before he even gets to close the door, she's like, I'll be down. Which means she is now integrated into the New Republic, and on her path to becoming a Jedi. And that is where the Last Command and the Thrawn trilogy as a whole concludes.
And you know what? I got to give credit to our friend Timothy. He is so reserved as a writer, and I respect the crap out of him for that. Like Luke never goes full superhero here. Like, you know, yeah, there's a few too many like callbacks to some of the original trilogy lines and stuff, but it would have been so easy to have like them kiss or something here, or something. But I think maybe Will, you posted about this recently during a Zahn interview where he said that he always envisioned them getting together, but it was too soon by the end of the story. Yep. But he was setting them up to like that's where that could go. And I really respect Zahn for doing that, because would assume he didn't know that he would be able to come back and maybe write more with them.
Yeah.
He was maybe expecting other people to take those stories and these characters. And I just thought that took a lot of reservation and maturity as a writer to do that, to just say like, okay, you know what? I'm going to set them up. And then it's up to the fans to decide. It's up to future writers to decide. But I put them in a place where I think that you could do something with them. And that's so cool.
It is his OC though does seem quite powerful compared to him, or compared to Luke though, don't you think too?
I'll be honest. Everybody was so hot.
She got all the kills. And she gets even stronger. That's the whole thing. It's the fact that like she becomes a strong Jedi and she has the assassin training on top of that. She's like Luke, but not afraid to kill. That's the whole thing.
I think that makes Luke cooler.
I guess it makes him different. But I mean, you're talking like in a fight though. That's the whole thing.
This was the analogy that I was going to give earlier. And thank you for reminding me that like, if Luke Skywalker is Batman, then Will is about to freak out with that. Like Mara Jade is like, this is going to sound like way lamer of a comparison, but she's like Commissioner Gordon. You know that line in the Batman where he's like, no guns, and he's just like, yeah, that's your thing, man. Like, that's kind of what it is of like, Luke doesn't beef with that per se, but like Mara's like, and to be honest, I will say if Mara was not there, I do think if he was like by that point of like he finally plead out, I do think he would have taken out Cyberpunk. Like, I don't think he would have had a hesitation with that. But Mara was there, and she was like the best person to kind of do the job.
The other thing too is like Sabayos like threatening to like, all I need is your body. It could be even your dead body. I mean, that would motivate me to be like, this guy's got to go. That's evil upon evil.
And we know that Luke is not like, we know Luke is not he's not like against like killing. He just wants to do whatever he can to
before he wants to exhaust all the other options. I was just getting at like in Air, you guys are really hyping up Mara, and I'm like, she's great as a character. don't get me wrong, but maybe she's way more powerful in the other books. But here I'm like, she's definitely second fiddle to Luke. I mean, 100% in terms of power scaling. I mean, she's like way under him in terms of power.
In a different way, I feel like.
If they went up like at the end of Last Command, if him and Mara went head to head, I mean, Luke's coming out of that on top. Let's be honest. I don't know. I don't see the power scaling hype, not the character hype. She's a great character, but she just seems like a lady who can use the Force. Like she's like a little bit better than Leia because she's had training, but we see her struggle every time she tries to do like any fight.
She's also being tormented by the Emperor because she's around the guy that like.
Sure, but I mean that's still part of it.
It is true, but now at the end of Last Command, as you said, a free Mara, I think that it's a little bit closer than what you think it is.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I got to be convinced by future materials, but I don't get the power hype just yet.
Gotcha.
That's all.
I think she's stronger in other areas, but she still doesn't like on a straight like power scaling level like beat Luke. I do think she is, because she was raised as an assassin. She's like, oh yeah, she's a better marksman. She's a better computer, and that makes her fun. But yeah,
it makes her interesting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I mean, Will and I did that whole reel on like, why Mara Jade is so cool. And to be honest, like I think in this book specifically, why she is so cool is she's a little bit force sensitive, but like she's not just like, oh, here's Luke also combined with like Han Solo and Boba Fett and Asajj Ventress, and so it's like she's got some nuance to her. But I would be curious to see what she gets up to. And
she's a great character, and I like the final beat that we end on here, where it's Luke got to still be Luke, and she's going to come with him. I love the handing off of the Skywalker saber. That's great.
So good. Well,
go ahead, Grayson. No, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of lag here. This is this is like a great callback to the beginning of Air when it's Luke trying to like help the individual people of the galaxy, and even down to it being on the exact same place of being on that rooftop. And this was like, that was this test, was he was able to help an individual person in the galaxy in a really good way, because he was trying to do that with Sabaoth, but he got to do it with Mara.
It's a great call. That's a great call.
Opening the book and ending the book with Obi-Wan leaving and Luke having to step in that role, and then doing the exact thing that started his entire journey with Ben Kenobi giving him the lightsaber, and fun little insert as well, that also kicked off the Clone Wars, which was kind of the whole idea for Luke and Joruus, because Ben mentions the Clone Wars in that like little throwaway line to Luke, which kind of set up this whole thing that Luke steps into the role of Ben Kenobi and doesn't have to, but chooses to give the lightsaber away, is so cool. And the line that I like the most, I think, is when he's like, "Oh, the lightsaber that almost killed me." In a way, Mara got to kill Luke with the lightsaber. So she was gifted the thing that she was finally able to end on. Was that entire goal was to kill Luke, and then she was gifted the weapon that she was able to release herself from Palpatine with. It is so sick. Also, final thing. Hey, I changed my clothes. Shout out to Mike Barron and Edvin Bjokovic, the two guys for the Last Command comic, who just happened to do the coolest thing ever, and for no reason at all, put Luke back in the gold vest from Shadows of the Empire, baby. Right there at the end, dude. Woo! The coolest look that Luke Skywalker has ever had.
Fishnet
but
Luke.
Yeah, it's the coolest fish. Why is he wearing a fisherman's vest? I don't know, but he's dripped out. That's all I'll say. What's up?
Can I correct one thing?
What?
Yeah.
She kills Clone Luke with Leia's saber, not with that saber.
Oh, I thought it
And
was his.
Nah, it's right here. I was just checking it myself. And I'm like, it's poetic, but not that poetic.
Such a bummer.
Because Clone Luke's still holding his lightsaber.
That's such a bummer. I
Yeah,
thought you
she
used
could-
that one. Dang it.
Not.
Well,
Wow.
forget what
Will
I
really
said.
thought
He's
he
still
was
wearing
cooking
the
there.
vest, though.
But in the same way,
Sick
it's
vest.
still reclaiming like something that was to use the weapon of the person who she thought was her mortal enemy and be like okay with that is still pretty cool, you know?
And I mean, Will is spot on here with the whole Ben Kenobi thing too, because a lot of their conversations leading up to their showdown on Tantus, Luke is mentioning how he's worried about training his niece and nephew, and he's worried about this throughout this whole trilogy. And yeah, he gets to, as Ben leaves the Skyline on Coruscant in the beginning of this story, Luke now steps in ready to be that teacher. And yeah, that's awesome. I love a good bookend. That's always, that really gets me going every time I read a story.
I'm not gonna lie, that opening chapter with Luke in this chapter is like my favorite, other than like the you will kill Luke Skywalker thing. Just the peak through line. Like I remember when we first started these books and like I got to that Luke chapter, I was like, man, ready for a ride. And then ending it on this with already me being so excited about Mara in the first place, and then it intrinsically tying into Luke. I'm like, let's go. Let's freaking go, dude.
All right, closing
The only
thoughts.
thing that I'm cool with about it being Leia's saber and not actually Luke's saber, the blue one, is because it's not that BS saber that she has in canon now. That's the last thing I'll say. Thank you.
Oh my god, bro.
Hey, Will,
What?
a random thought. I don't know, but I just staring at the artwork, I think that they put him in the Shadows of the Empire vest because it is the same artist. At least the drawings
that's
look
a
the
good
same.
point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's neat.
There you
So
go.
yeah, I was gonna say
That's
they're
cool.
drawn exactly the same. I feel like.
That's cool.
Yeah, just staring at I'm like, man, this looks a lot like Shadows of the Empire, and I think that's a fun little Easter egg.
For sure.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's
sorry.
dope.
I'll hush up. I guess I don't know that for a fact. I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, I think this is it. Anyway,
No,
Closing
sorry.
thoughts, guys?
More than Air and Last Command for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Connor asked final thoughts on the trilogy as a whole. Any last addendums?
I'll give my final verdict. Great story, great character moments. I wish it was a little tighter. That's all. I really like all the character moments are great. The new characters are great. Overall, like this would have made an excellent sequel trilogy because as movies, they would have been cut down a little bit. It is a great follow-up to Return of the Jedi. It's a fun like time capsule being before the prequels. There's a reason why these books are kind of held in such high esteem, and it's been cool to experience them. So overall, really good. I don't know, 8.5 out of 10, something like that. Anybody else?
I will say this is going to be a hot take. I know everybody is like there's people that are like people who don't like canon or have problems with the sequels. Like, yes, they are not perfect movies. I will say, to me, this trilogy feels more like a season of television in between like an episode, not like it would be like 12 episodes or like a Kenobi type situation, but a little bit more expanded to where it's like, hey, here's this really cool story. But to be honest, as cool as it would be to see this in a movie form, and yes, it would absolutely be tighter in that way. I don't entirely envision this like ever being like a proper, even for Legends, like a proper sequel trilogy. That being said, agreed. Really enjoyed it. It's just got some pacing issues that I think could be chopped up. Sadly, this is not a bad rating, but I do think for me it probably lands about at a 7.5 out of 10. It's good. I do enjoy it, and I do think it is like great insight into what Star Wars was like in the 90s and what fans back then were working with and how much it has influenced current Star Wars. But overall, still really, really enjoyed it. And I'm really glad that we've got to dive into like a proper trilogy by someone who we have met and spoke way too much to, and just getting to pick his brain about. So yeah.
Will, what do you think?
I give it an 8. A very tight 8, which could drop to a 7.9 into the 7s very easily. But the only thing that I think could have made it a little bit better for me has nothing to do with the way it's written. It's the time in which I read it. If I read this at a time where I didn't know about the sequels or what was going to happen to Luke or the original trilogy gang, and there was look, now reading this, Luke's not going to die. Rather, like, obviously, because they use him in other media and, like, obviously all of Legends and even with canon and everything, Luke's not going to die. I think reading these books, there would have been just a little bit of that fear of, like, especially coming to the end of this book, of knowing how powerful Mara is, knowing that she's hell-bent on killing him, and then getting to the end of this book and putting her in the same room as a clone of himself with an evil emperor type who can shoot lightning out of his fingers. Like, I think the fear of, man, I wonder how Luke's going to get out of this one. Like, believing that he's Luke Skywalker and he's the hero and he's going to win. But I just think there would have been a little bit more fear of maybe he wouldn't win, or maybe something would happen, which I know a lot of people don't like. It's kind of why I like Dark Empire a lot, because he does drop. And it is the flip of like, whoa, we weren't expecting that, which I will say is kind of also a lot of the reason why people don't like The Last Jedi in the way it happened. But the idea is also there. If I had read this back in 1994, or when this Air came out in 1994, so this probably would have come out in what, like 96?
No, this came out in 94. Air came out in 92.
Air was 91.
So, if I was reading this in 1994, I would have probably given this like a 9 or a 10 of like, this is especially
100%.
with those scenes of like why I give it an 8 and why I love these stories so much. But kind of like the Clone Wars, where you're like, Clone Wars is a great show, but I pick and choose parts that I like. Or like you said about Rebels, where you're like, I pick and choose parts that I like. Like if I had to go back and watch Twilight of the Apprentice over and over again, dude, it's so good. But then there's also parts where I'm like comparing that to like Ezra and Zeb going to look for Melu runs. Like it's fun, and it's part of it. But like there's stuff where you got to look at the project as a whole. That's my only thing of like there are 10 out of 10 moments in this book. In this series, I just don't know if the series as a whole is a 10 out of 10.
I get you, Seth.
Yeah,
final one.
It's my second favorite book we've read.
What's your first?
Oh, Plagueis.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Yeah. So, second favorite book we've read. The second time through with this, and then also reading the comics. But when unfortunately, I was still too young when this first came out. Like, there was still tons of other Star Wars stories. Like, The Glove of Darth Vader was the first Star Wars book I really remember reading because that was kids' books. So, like, I knew that even the first time through with this, that I don't have that cool, like, oh man, is Luke going to make it out of this? Like, I know he's going to make it out of it. So, getting to revisit it, and then I'd read the comics a couple times too, because, throughout the years. But 8 out of 10. That's fine. It's good. I was going to say that, like, I do think it's a little dumb that like some of my favorite OT characters don't really have anything to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then like a lot of the new characters have a lot to do, but I get it. It's their story. Really what this is doing is, and what it did, it kicked off the EU. Let's be real, is it just opens up just like how Dark Empire kind of, Dark Empire and Empire's End like closes the book on Palpatine, but then opens everything to like Luke's Jedi Order and everything. Like both those books, love them or hate them, really kicks off the EU in their own special ways.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hey, we got a question here, Grayson. You see that from Owen Anderson?
Oh, yes. Well, I have a little. Let me read something for you. Is that okay with everybody? Could I do that real quick? Okay.
Share with the group.
This story happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It is already over. Nothing can be done to change that. It is a story of love and loss, brotherhood and betrayal, courage and sacrifice, and the death of dreams. It is a story of the blurred line between our best and our worst. It is the story of the end of an age. A strange thing about stories, though this all happened so long ago and so far away that words cannot describe the time or the distance, it is also happening right now. Right here. It is happening as you read these words. This is how 25 millennia come to a close. Corruption and treachery have crushed 1,000 years of peace. This is not just the end of a republic. Night is falling on civilization itself. This is the twilight of the Jedi. The end starts now. As you saw already, we are covering the Revenge of the Sith novelization for the 20th anniversary of, the movie Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. It's pretty cool. And
that opening's insane.
I can't wait. Dude. I've heard this is excellent. And this is my favorite Star Wars movie.
I'm 2 chapters in and it's wild already, where it's like, oh man, I didn't even like, wow, they're really like going it. Like that opening, like has nothing to do with anything, but it's just talking about how like, hey, by the way, happening outside your window, things are crumbling.
It's insane.
Very exciting.
Yes. So we will be back around, we don't have the specific date yet, but we will be back around the end of May, properly around the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, covering at least as far as I am planning, we are planning the entire novel. Because listen, you're going to know the plot beats already, but we're getting into the nitty gritty. So really pumped.
Okay. There we go.
There we go.
This was fun, y'all. Can't wait for Revenge of the Sith.
Yes. Thank y'all in the chat for all being here, for joining us on our first attempt at a trilogy. I had an absolute blast, and I am just very thankful that I get to do this with all of y'all and the people who are just supporting us on a regular basis. It makes it fun. It is truly something that I enjoy just putting work and time and effort into. So, yeah. Any final thoughts before we close this out?
Merrick's got a question.
Merrick wants to know real quick, lightning round, favorite moment, quote, excerpt from the trilogy.
I can start. In Dark Forces, when they're trying to escape with Talon Card and Mara Jade and Luke, like that just feels so Star Warsy.
That's cool.
It's the best part. Well, best part of that book. The ending of this book is crazy too.
For me, is the bookend, the beginning and the opening, and how it full circles. It's great.
Sure. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, the bookend. But dude, I could reread that Luke talking to Obi-Wan for the last time any day.
Yeah,
I love that part.
Yeah, I was gonna say my favorite line, my excerpt is he says, "So I really am the last of the Jedi," and Obi-Wan says, "No, Luke, the first of the new."
It's great.
Woo! Woo! Well, guys, thank y'all for being here. We'll see y'all at the end of May. Hey, if you're going to Celebration or you're enjoying Celebration this week, pump for the news. You will see our faces probably on social media. And remember, if it's not in our records, in our archives, it simply does not exist. We will see y'all